Hey, let's start the show.
It's May 23rd, 2013. Welcome to This Is Only Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. I'm Will Smith, and we have a full house today. Norman Chan, sitting there with the Surface. How you doing?
And Diet Coke.
Diet Coke Surface. You look like a man ready to podcast.
I am ready to podcast.
Directly to your left, returning to us for a, let's say, limited time appearance, Gary Whitta.
Hello.
And to my right, Bradley Shoemaker of Giant Bomb and Giant Bomb.
Here for one night only.
One night only. Morning, 9 o'clock.
night
We're
only.
starting this real early today.
No encore.
This is a very special episode.
This is
special guest stars.
This is, I'm glad that you guys are all here to, really sit down and take note and appreciate the sea change that's happened in the last few days.
And what is that exactly?
Well, we all, as an internet, have agreed that the correct pronunciation of the acronym GIF is GIF.
I thought we weren't going to talk about this.
Honestly, I'm not even going to legitimize
All
it.
that's important is
I'm
Will's
just going to
right.
refuse to engage.
That's
or should I
only
say
thing that's important.
Or should I
just
say
turning Norm down.
engage?
Only-
I'm not
only thing important.
I refuse to engage with you on this
Well,
issue.
it's a simple rule of pronunciation, right? You pronounce the acronym the way that the English would have it pronounced.
I would only say, and
mean
it's
as
not a
in-
rule, it's just a preference. I would only say that the acronym should reflect the pronunciation of the word that's being shortened from.
Absolutely.
Graphics,
So then-
the word graphic is pronounced with a hard G,
Yep.
so it makes sense that GIF would be a hard G.
So then, have you fired your Lassers today?
I don't understand.
Laser is an acronym.
Hey, Will, how many Christmas gifts did you get last year?
I didn't get that many because we
Yeah.
were saving for baby stuff. But thanks for bringing that up, Brad.
I bet not. So to follow on Gary's argument,
Yes.
it's a bad way to verbally communicate information. Because if you've never seen the extension written out before and you were to say GIF to somebody, they might think it was written with a J.
Well, then they're clearly idiots.
How about this?
It also precludes the possibility of ever having a JIF extension. Because that pronunciation is
I'm okay
already
with no
taken.
JIF extensions.
Man.
Might
It's-
I just suggest that there is bigger shit to worry about?
You're probably right.
Are you-
Like the number
doesn't
one thing on the
matter.
top of our
The
show
top of
notes.
the list.
It is
Top
mild.
of the
It
list.
is mildly.
It's not even.
It's mildly irritating.
The top of the list.
I think it's
Micah, a man who's I respect a lot, is a GIF man. Like it's when you find
Yeah.
out that someone that you thought was pretty cool is a GIF person, like that really sullies your opinion of them.
I heard that Jake Rodkin was on Team GIF too. And,
Oh,
and
really?
That just
it's
deepened
all
my
going
esteem for
downhill.
him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I look at all you poor GIF people, and I look at you, and I'm a little sad for you because you're living in a dark, unenlightened world.
Do you feel?
I don't
mean,
see how that's different from any other day.
obviously, what a lot
Fair
of
enough.
people are saying is that if the creator of the word says it's pronounced that way, that's the final
That's
word.
why we're talking about
But
this.
do you feel that's legitimate? That the creator of a word should have authority on how it should be pronounced?
So part of me says that, with something that is, most language evolves over time, right? So, for example, the rules of everything
Unless
evolves
you're
over
French.
time. Well, except
Unless
for the
you're
French.
French.
Fair enough. Like the rules of baseball evolved over time. The rules of basketball, it took them 20 years to decide that the bottom of the peach basket that they were throwing the basketballs
10
into,
years.
was
Yeah.
it 10? I thought it was
10
20.
years. Yeah.
Should have a hole so that the ball can fall straight through.
And then add the 24-second time clock.
Right. I listened to the
Yes,
same episode
we all
of
listen to
99%
podcasts,
Invisible the
same
other day.
podcast.
That stuff evolves over time. However, when you're talking about something like an acronym that is just created out of thin air, for example, the CompuServe graphics interchange format, you should pronounce it the way the creator intended. We don't call it Microsoft Windows; it's Windows.
That's
We don't capitalize the B in Xbox.
but Windows
because
isn't an
Microsoft
acronym.
says the correct capitalization
Well,
is
Windows isn't an
capital
acronym.
X,
You
lowercase
have to come
b.
up with a better example.
Okay,
than
lasers
that.
then.
Laser is a better example.
Right, because the
light
S in laser is
amplification,
pronounced something. It's synergy. or
light
something.
amplification by simulated emission of radiation.
Nice job. Ooh.
So the amplified would be I guess that's a hard A.
Yeah.
An A instead of
It
an
would
A
be
sound.
lasers.
So technically, you would say laser.
Yeah,
I like that word.
laser.
Lasser.
You're
Don't
yeah.
laser me. Don't taser me.
Taser is a different thing. That's
Well,
a brand.
it's a different acronym.
Taser isn't an acronym either. Or maybe it is.
It is an acronym.
Really?
Yeah.
What does it stand for? To the internet, Chan.
That's
No
why
fact checking.
No, we do fact checking on this podcast. It's a much better. It's better when we do that. People get
I feel like we've covered whatever interest this subject holds. I feel like we've wrung it out. The towel is now dry.
In about the first 10 seconds.
I just thought it was amazing because it was the first time anybody mentioned the Webbies in any kind of like context that wasn't kind of ironic in a long time.
Taser stands for Thomas A. Swift's electric rifle.
Oh my God.
There you go.
That's the best thing I'm going to hear today.
So Taser.
A. Swift's electric. So it works.
Well, yeah, but until we would have to know what the A in Thomas A. Smith stands for in order to have a definitive ruling on that, right?
Probably Alva, because electrical people all
Clicking
have
on the
Alva.
Thomas Swift Wikipedia page.
Was he the guy who invented the taser?
No. He was the childhood hero of the guy who invented the taser.
Wow.
It's like AK-47, which also took its initials from the creator.
Well, but the
You
gun.
mean the automat Kalashnikov?
yeah.
Yeah, but wasn't that also the name of the gun foundry?
I thought Kalashnikov was the guy who designed it.
Oh, maybe.
I might be wrong. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, after met Kalashnikov, and the 47 is the year in which it was invented.
Oh, okay. I was going to say he made 46 other guns. He's a regular Iron Man. Should we jump-
Still widely recognized as one of the most reliable guns in the world. Not that I'm a gun person or anything, but apparently people really like it.
It's reliable and cheap.
It's a workhorse.
We mentioned this only because Steve Wilhite, who's the guy who invented the GIF.
The GIF.
The GIF.
The GIF.
Won a Webby for lifetime achievement. So the GIF has come all the way around. We talked about WebP, which
GIF.
is Google's thing. I'm not going to respond anymore. Yeah, Joogle. So this doesn't have to. Why does this have to be that way?
It's you brought this on the table.
Okay, well let's talk about the number one most important thing on the list this week: Bieber's monkey.
What's the latest?
You know about Bieber's monkey?
Well, I had heard that there have been. This is a while ago, but I heard there had been some kind of customs.
And then I heard that Bieber no longer cared for his monkey.
Bieber wanted
and
a
left his
monkey, so he
in-
bought a monkey
in Germany.
and took the monkey on tour with him, not knowing that you can't bring animals in and across boundaries with borders without doing stuff
Like 6
I'm
months
shocked
quarantine.
he didn't know that.
Justin Bieber was unaware of something
of international law.
commonsensical.
Yeah. So Bieber got to Germany. He hadn't done the paperwork. The Germans impounded the monkey and put the monkey in basically
Monkey jail.
no, in quarantine.
Yeah, sure.
Did I accidentally walk into the wrong office? Is it like the TMZ podcast or something? Like, why are we talking about
I
this?
just find the Bieber monkey fascinating.
But is there any kind of science or technology angle
Absolutely
at all?
not.
Okay.
But the monkey's now German. The Germans are keeping him because he just has to pay the fees. He didn't fill out the paperwork to get the monkey back. Bieber doesn't want his monkey.
What do you got next? Like some Kim Kardashian?
Well, I was going to talk about
story?
the X-Bone next.
Well,
Okay.
you want to do that after we get all the other tech stuff out of the way?
I think we
quick
should do
tech
that
stuff out of
first
the
because
way.
we have HTC.
HTC's Asia CEO quit.
Yeah, and
Executives
a
are-
lot of the executives are
And they say that
failing
HTC One sold about 5 million phones so
versus
far,
Infinity
10 million
for the Galaxy S4.
10 million, double.
Okay.
I would like to take this opportunity to say, since I've been around on the podcast for a while, that the HTC One really seems like a very beautiful phone.
It is
beautiful.
a gorgeous
It
phone.
looks really
Like, if I
nice.
was going to have an Android phone, I don't think there would even be any
No,
question.
absolutely not.
Well, I would want a stock Android version of that.
Yeah,
So much of that is
but
tied
as a
into
piece of
software.
hardware, it seems like
yeah.
that's the one to beat.
Has chamfers and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty hot.
And then NVIDIA announced a new video card today, their new top of the line, GTX 780.
and as a result,
Wait, isn't the Titan the top of the line?
okay,
Technically, yes.
Titan's like the McLaren F1 of
Oh,
NVIDIA
it's like it's
video
not
cards.
really for the mass market.
But Titan's still based on the 600 series, right?
No.
No?
Titan's GK 110 as opposed to 104.
which is the most current core.
So is that also what's in
Kepler?
No.
Isn't that
700?
Kepler?
They're all Kepler.
Okay.
They're all Kepler.
They've just been iterating for
But
for a
GK
while,
110 was what was in supercomputing stuff.
yeah. Okay.
And then they made a consumer part for it, which is the Titan. And now they're making another consumer part, which is lower clock speed, fewer cores,
Less memory.
and as opposed to 6 gigs, 4 gigs, and that is GTX 780.
But this is a step up from the 680 was
Yes.
the previous.
Yeah.
high.
Oh, yeah. No reason to buy a 680 right now.
So you can tell because the number is higher.
That's
Yeah,
right.
the big number.
Yeah.
So if people have a 680, should they upgrade to the 780?
They should not.
If people have a 580, should they upgrade to the 780?
If you have 700 or 650 bucks plus tax,
Maybe.
and shipping,
So
then
the Titan, as you said, is really kind of a luxury item. It's like $1,000.
It's
What does the
$1,000.
780 sell for?
650.
Oh, you see, I mean that's still pretty pricey.
It is absolutely.
it is not an expensive
And is there much of a
card.
difference in performance between the two?
20%.
Yes, because the Titan is to compete against dual GPU cards.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Titan is basically a dual GPU performance for previous generation
Right.
in a single board.
The coolest thing though is that they announced some new software stuff with their GeForce
I mean,
Experience.
the G4, yeah.
And now, do you remember when we talked about the Shield having the ability to stream from your computer if you have a couple replace?
I haven't been here for
card?
a while, so.
Okay, so at CES they announced a console, like a handheld.
Yeah.
And it's $350 on pre-order now. It will ship in June.
And it's like a Wii U, right? It'll just sling the image
one of the
to your
big
handheld from the
features
PC.
is that if you have a 6 series or newer graphics card, NVIDIA graphics card, 600 series, you can stream some Steam games over. Not all Steam games, but some of the approved ones over. And sling it over to the Shield because there's a dedicated H.264 encoder chip on the Shield, on Kepler.
Yeah.
All Kepler class cards. Now they're going to use that chip on local PC to do something like PlayStation functionality, PS4 functionality, and let you record non-stop footage.
PVR.
So it will be encoding non-stop from the
So
video
for people
card's
that
memory
like to
buffer.
do Let's Plays and streaming and stuff, it'd be good for them.
Absolutely.
It's more for posting clips than Let's Plays, because Let's Plays are kind of constantly streamed.
Right.
So you can have, it'll help that kind of Let's Play stuff.
Maybe.
But then you can also, macro key to record the last 20 minutes of your gameplay immediately.
It'll be awesome for Brad, because while you're playing a
Mr. Dota.
game, well, or when you're playing a game for a review or something, you can just
Yeah.
mash the button
I had
and get
something
footage.
awesome.
I had the
and
same
then-
thought when they announced that PS4 feature, because
Yeah.
how many times have we been reviewing a game and something crazy happens that will never happen again? And it's
You want to
man,
mash that share button.
We really wish I had a clip of that, and
Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah, the idea of like a constantly running DVR where you can just say, oh my God, I wish I'd recorded
Yeah.
that. But you always are,
Yeah,
right? You can always go
yeah.
back and get the last 30 seconds.
Question is, how good will the quality be? Like if it's only kind of streaming quality,
1080 and H.264 bit rate will be
pretty good.
variable.
pretty good. Okay.
Will, what are you doing?
He's dramatic lighting for the big.
It is very
big top.
dramatic.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
for the lights
Joey's
have gone
not here,
down.
and I forgot to turn off the main lights, even though the studio lights are
Does this
on.
mean it's time for the main event?
No. Well, one thing that I would say is we've been talking for a long time about holding off on PC video card upgrades until we find out what the consoles are capable of.
Now we know.
Just in case there was any like DirectX 12 or any kind of crazy new API stuff that would require new silicon. At this point, I think it's safe to say if you want to upgrade your PC video card and you're running something that's 2 or 3 years old, you're okay.
Yeah.
Because we've seen PS4, we've seen Xbox One, Xbone, and we know there's no huge surprises on the API front. So what you buy now should be able to play those games at a relatively native manner.
So it should be a pretty exciting time if you're building a new PC this summer, because then you're going to have Haswell and new parts from NVIDIA.
Yeah. Or I mean, even if you have an Ivy Bridge or Sandy Bridge machine want to upgrade, go nuts. It's fine. So let's see. Is there anything else on the news front? I think that was it. It was kind of a slow news week. The IO
There's
stuff.
new Flickr stuff. I mean, there's tons of Yahoo bought Tumblr. That was this week.
Right.
Flickr's
yeah.
good again, right?
Flickr's awesome. Well, Will doesn't think so.
No. I think Flickr is awesome. I think it's great that they. So the thing that they changed at Flickr is they added a free plan that makes sense. Previously, the free plan limited the number of images you could upload or the number of megabytes you could upload.
Megabytes to 300 megs a month.
Which is nothing in a world of 16 megapixel cameras. The new plan gives you a terabyte of storage for free. You have ads. Basically, that's it.
The ads so far have not been that intrusive. They've been nice camera ads.
The only place that it gets weird is when you have an existing pro account, which was $25 a year. They've taken away the new paid accounts, which just remove ads on the new Flickr, are less functional than the previous pro accounts, which were half the price.
So if you were like deciding between SmugMug and Flickr, and after the May 20th decided, oh, I want to pay for Flickr, your pay options are very limited. You either pay $50 for no ads, which is double what the 20 previous no ads
Right.
and feature-filled pro account was, or if you want more space and you need more than the terabyte, it's $500 a year for 2 terabytes.
Wow.
So the terabyte is amazing for free
I mean,
account.
for photos, a terabyte is a lot.
yeah.
20 megapixel photos, saving like the highest quality JPEGs. You're not going to use a terabyte unless you take photos. Like
I mean, that's the thing. I think in a way they can afford to make that very generous sounding promise in the knowledge that 90% of users are never even
it's
close to
what
actually
Google did.
using it all.
Yeah, I've been with Gmail.
I've been using Flickr for 8 years, and I have 2,000, 3,000 images up there because I
Now,
don't
if they also
upload
open it up,
everything.
if they also open it up to video, then that would be a different.
They do have video.
Okay, but that, presumably
It's
there's
short.
like a sub cap within
It
that.
is 90-second video only
Right.
and 1080p capped.
Okay.
It's like proto Vine kind of.
Right.
90 seconds. The big controversy was for people who a lot of people gift pro accounts or had gifted pro accounts. And were using gift card style.
So
I have 6 months of
I
pro.
gave my
or-
sister a pro card because she does
And-
photos and wouldn't have paid
Right.
for it otherwise.
And unless you were on a renewing pro account, you couldn't get
Oh, you can't
grandfathered
keep-
in.
oh, I didn't know
But they
that.
changed the policies now. So now anyone with an existing pro account, whether you were on a renewal or you were under a gift, can choose to be on the grandfathered
that's
in
good.
pro account for $25 a year, which has the ads, no free ads, no ads, statistics, and all sorts of
The
other stuff.
statistics are not particularly robust, but the no ads is nice. And I mean, for me, the photo service is just about, hey, when you're using a free photo service, it's how are they going to monetize you? And I'm happy to pay $25 to not be monetized. I mean, I felt like that was a fair
I think
price
I'm going to
and
use it.
lower.
I mean, I've got a pretty big photo album, and I always feel better knowing that I have like multiple cloud backups. I think I'll just take my whole photo library and
Yeah,
stick it up
it's
there.
it's
Why
like
not?
Google Music, where
right.
people use Google Music as just another repository
Yeah, it's just another little
for the media.
It's just another little, safe house for you.
And Flickr lets you copyright all your stuff, so it's not like they have the right to use your photos in ads.
Instagram style.
Exactly. And while they are kind of directing their service to be a competitor for Instagram for people to upload mobile, Flickr is more repository because Instagram photos are of such shit quality, and Flickr photos
And
now
cropped.
you can have the full res,
Yeah.
Right.
and with all the limitations that you want to put on your photos for resolution and access
and
copyright.
a ton of image, because Flickr has been around for a really long time. Most of the image editing software supports direct up. Like you can, even in iPhoto, which is the barest bones of that, you can select your images, hit upload, and it'll send them to Flickr for you.
All right. So now, and then what about Tumblr? Is that worth $1 billion?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
No. So I'm going to show my age here, but I don't really fully understand what Tumblr
So
is.
Tumblr is like imagine. Do you know what WordPress is? It's like a
Yeah.
blogger or blogging platform.
Yeah.
So Tumblr takes a traditional blogging platform and adds the kind of friends listy stuff.
So it's like an RSS feed
Twitter.
for blogs.
No.
It's a platform for originally it was created as a way for people to easily create blogs.
Right.
So you can have
Just
your
like
own,
WordPress.com.
But most
Just like
Tumblrs that I
WordPress.
see are just like humorous pictures.
which is a blog.
Yeah.
people. It's
I do see Tumblrs where people like actually write a blog, but it's mostly just humorous images.
it serves both.
The other side of Tumblr that you're not seeing is if you sign up for a Tumblr account and follow a bunch of people on Tumblr, then you'll get a Twitter style feed of all of the stuff that they post,
And then you can
on your control panel.
repost, which is like Pinterest pinning stuff, if that's more familiar to you.
Gary looks like he's down with the pins.
So it's like before there was Pinterest, instead of a wall of things you pin, it's a flowing river of things.
Right,
you
so I
reblog.
can decide. I can follow 10 people's Tumblrs, and when I go to my personal Tumblr page, it's all of those.
Yeah.
all the
Yes.
latest updates are all there.
Maybe the most important thing to know about Tumblr is that it's where millions of teenagers have flocked to from Facebook.
And that's why it's worth $1 billion.
Right, 'cause they have,
Because
like,
on the
well,
face
I
of
don't
it-
know if you say flocked, but 94% of teenagers use Facebook or have a Facebook
Or have
account.
They have an
accounts, but
account.
may not actively use it
what's the
anymore.
part of this where this thing is worth a quarter of
Well, they
quarter
have-
of Star Wars?
They have
Explain that.
They have
part.
what is it? 120 million users or something crazy like that.
They have a lot of users.
I think it's over 100 million.
So
I mean, they're basically buying a user base, right?
They're buying
Yeah.
user base.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they're buying user base that isn't 50-year-old housewives,
And
because that's what Yahoo's existing user
David
base
Karp is, from all reports, brilliant and the right person to help
and now
spearhead.
quite rich.
Yes,
Yeah.
And how has the reaction been? Because usually when Yahoo comes in and buys something, like when Yahoo first bought Flickr really went downhill. So is there any skepticism about?
No,
what might
yeah,
happen to
people are
Tumblr?
freaked out. It's,
Well, okay,
it's-
when Yahoo first bought Flickr went downhill over time.
Flickr
lots
was
of-
just ignored. Delicious was ignored.
It was
and-
very badly mismanaged.
Yeah, they bought it and then didn't do anything with it. They broke the logins and then didn't do anything with it for 5 years.
Right.
Melissa Meyer is the
Marissa.
That's what I said.
No, not Melissa.
I said Marissa.
Okay, Marissa, yep.
Is the new relatively new CEO of Yahoo. She was responsible among many other things for the design of the Google homepage at Google prior to this. And she has been acquiring a bunch of stuff and kind of changing the way businesses run at Yahoo.
Right.
Her
Which
task is
desperately
to
needs
fix
to be
Yahoo.
done, obviously, because Yahoo is.
Well, it's still huge. It's a big company.
but kind of been on a downward trend for a while.
It is not a company that people want to go work for and are excited about going to
It's
work.
been-
So one
Well-
way to turn that
well-
around is like cool, hip acquisitions like Tumblr.
It's been an upward trend both in the stock market and perception wise. I think.
Well, since she started.
Yeah, since she started.
Yeah.
People have a lot more faith in.
There's only one Tumblr that I go to regularly. It's called Pete Campbell is a G. Have you
From
seen
Pete
this one?
Campbell from Mad Men?
Yeah. So Angai Kroll actually pointed me towards this. So Pete Campbell, it's images of Pete Campbell from Mad Men juxtaposed with contemporary gangster rap lyrics.
That's exactly what Tumblr.
And that to me is pretty much what Tumblr is. How that's worth $1 billion, I'm not quite sure.
I have a Tumblr.
Do you?
Yeah.
Ah.
It's called the GoPro face.
Oh, right.
It's all the people when they look at the GoPro and you get right up on it to make sure it's on. You hit the button.
I'm trying to
super
figure out
easy
what,
way to make
I don't know what my
single
Tumblr
server
would be.
websites or anything.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of sites that are actually powered by Tumblr, just like sites powered by WordPress, but you don't know that because you can skin them in so many different ways.
Maria Popov's site is a Tumblr site. A lot of corporate blogs are Tumblr sites now because the benefit of running your corporate blog off of your own infrastructure is that when your shit goes down, Tumblr's probably still up.
Must be nice to be 26 years old and now worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, you know.
It was all cash too.
Really? They didn't pay stock?
No, apparently Yahoo wiped out all their available cash on hand to buy Tumblr.
Wow. So they just basically walked up to and were like, here's what we got.
Yeah,
My pockets are empty.
just emptied their
It was
pockets
like-
like
it was
lint
like
and
the last
everything.
quarter
Yeah.
out of the
Just like,
piggy bank?
Make
Yeah.
it rain, David Carp.
I think that's a whole different kind
Please
of
make
making
us
it rain.
relevant again.
Did Tumblr have a significant revenue stream before this, or was it all kind of theoretical?
I don't think they've had ads to speak of.
Really?
I think there are ads on the dashboard, right? I don't know. I don't
know.
haven't
Whenever I
paid
go to a Tumblr, it's usually a very just austere page.
It's just a feed.
single column is
Yeah.
my
So how
preferred Tumblr.
obviously the challenge whenever this happens is like how do you monetize it and
Punch the monkey,
corporatize
man.
it without turning it into something other than what made it popular in the first place?
One of the interesting things in the acquisition stuff is that Marissa Meyer said in multiple instances, we're not going to fuck this up. Like we know that that Yahoo has a reputation of destroying good acquisitions, and we do not want to do that here. This is basically our last chance to acquire something, and
While
not fuck it up.
also borrowing images without copyright for animated.
The keep calm and
image.
carry on.
Yes.
Is that copyrighted?
No, the other one.
not.
The
The
freak
Not
out
Panic
one.
and Freak Out was
That
the Ollie Moss
that was
one.
Ollie Moss. No permission given.
Well, it's the internet, man. It's
but
Tumblr.
What Marissa Meyer said is that they want to focus on the areas of Yahoo that people actually use, and figure out why people use those. Like people use Yahoo Sports a lot.
Yeah, like fantasy sports is a big deal on you.
Well, but not just fantasy sports, like standings and stuff like that. And I use that.
I read the other day that Yahoo Sports is bigger than ESPN on the web.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, it's a lot of it's force of habit, and also sheer momentum. So figuring out a way to get those services, sports and Flickr and Tumblr.
and I think
all
Yahoo
to
Mail is actually still
intermingle.
very widely used. Maybe
Yeah.
not so much in the US.
spammers mostly.
Yeah. Anytime you get something from a Yahoo Mail account, you
Straight in the
got to
trash.
give it a second look. Yeah.
I just filter that
the
stuff
hell
right into
is
the
this?
garbage.
What about Outlook?
It's kind of email classism.
Outlook, I haven't seen much
Yeah.
coming in from Outlook.
What? So many people use all the Hotmail accounts or Outlook accounts.
I never,
now.
I know,
Yeah, I
but
filter those people too.
I never saw Hotmail accounts either.
A lot in Asia actually.
Yeah, again, the Hotmail and MSN very big in Europe, but again, not so much here.
Can we talk about Bieber's monkey some more? We got new
No,
like,
come
breaking
on.
news.
All
Okay,
right, I think-
Xbox One.
Stop
I think
putting
we're
it
good.
off.
I'm pretty sure there was like an actual big relevant text. I'm trying to remember what it was, but there was a big relevant text.
Seems
story
like it was
this week.
yesterday, right? Or was it the day before?
I feel like
2
there
days
was
ago.
there was
2 days
definitely
ago?
something.
Okay,
All right, I'm rolling up my non-existent sleeves here.
Microsoft.
Let's get down to business.
Microsoft finally. Sony a couple months ago took the wraps off the PlayStation 4.
Well,
gave it
not
a name.
really. They didn't really take the wraps.
Well, they
off.
told us
not
what the
physically.
hardware. We don't know what it looks like,
Right.
But we know what's in it,
Well,
and we saw some games.
We have an inkling now of what it looks like.
It's going to be a black box.
Yep, it's got some grating on it and some vents,
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and tell you
some angles.
what's going to happen. What it looks like is ultimately the least meaningful thing about it.
You like knowing what it makes it more real to see it.
But the
those
reality,
mock-ups.
and this is again, I do think that when people react to the aesthetics of a new device, especially with a console, the reality is it's probably going to be sitting on a shelf under like a frosted piece of glass or something in your hi-fi center or whatever.
There
And
are
you're
a
never
lot
going to
of
really going to
people
look at it.
who want-
It just kind of disappears.
Consoles or media streamers for the bedroom, and look of it does influence whether one half of the relationship approves of it.
See,
I'm
but-
not sure that the Xbox One is going to fit in a bedroom.
Yeah, it's
just yet.
pretty meaty.
Exactly. Well, the size and look of it matters in that regard.
I for a bedroom, I want something that hangs off the back of the TV and is invisible.
Yep.
Or
right?
built into the TV.
Yeah, or built into the TV is good. Okay, so they went right. Let's first off, let's take a moment and think back about what's changed since the Xbox 360 came out. Because it's been 7 years, 8 years,
A lot has
7 years.
changed.
8 years.
Right. We've had the rise of smartphones,
7.
Yep.
multiple core CPUs.
Yep.
DirectX 9 brought programmable shaders,
Yep.
which are present in the 360.
But it's become a lot more robust.
But
right?
but they're much more robust and they're universal. So instead of having separate shader units for vertexes and textures and stuff, which I mean the 360 has a universal shader architecture, but that was a brand new development for them, and that stuff has had 3 generations since then, basically.
Apps, indie games,
The rise of apps,
Steam,
Online gaming
Yep.
became relevant largely because of the
broadband,
360.
downloadable games,
Casual gaming, social gaming.
Super-
cloud storage,
free to play.
It's a different.
super low power states and suspendable.
That's the big one?
Suspendable stuff.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff has changed.
So when the 360 launched, multi-core CPUs were relatively new. The programmable shaders were brand new. Downloadable services to buy games were like Steam was fledgling at that point.
Steam, we'll see. So Half-Life 2 came out in late 04.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people forget that everybody hated Steam when it
Hated.
debuted.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, what?
Hated it for like 2 years.
You need to authenticate.
yeah.
Fuck
You need
that.
an internet connection.
Remember Half-Life 2 launch
Con.
day when nobody could play it?
Yeah. It was just like SimCity launch day.
So like when the 360 came out, like downloadable services were not well liked.
No. So
and in many ways, they're still not well liked. I mean, they've evolved, but
Yeah.
they're
Big
still
turning
not fully
point.
mature.
Geometry wars.
1080p.
Yep.
1080p was not like you if you had a 1080p set in 2005, you either had a huge ass rear projection CRT
Yep.
or
like a
the
D-
most expensive LCD in the world.
Or some kind of like DLP or
Yeah.
Yeah, basically HD is now mainstream.
Yeah.
Blu-ray.
Blu-ray has actually because there was a year between the 360 launch and Blu-ray taking
Right.
off, or the PS3
I
launching.
don't know that I'd say it ever took off.
Okay.
Exactly.
But more
But yes,
widespread
yes,
adoption.
Sure.
Beat the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a whole raft of things.
But yeah, it's like the
changed.
entire landscape has changed in the last 7 years.
Right. The rise of phones and tablets has led people to kind of expect instant on stuff, which is I think if you look at all of the stuff that's changed with this, the stark brand new difference between the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One and the PS3 for that matter is that this is going to be an instant on device. And the 360 at this point, even if you have it set to go straight to the disc that's in the tray, is like 5 minutes from turn on to game starting. So it's called the Xbox One. The hardware is similar to the PS4 hardware, which we talked about a few months ago. They're using an AMD Jaguar core, or two AMD Jaguar cores, so 8 CPUs total.
It's Jaguar.
Yeah, I mean, look, much like the current generation, this whatever battle will be fought next the hardware specification will probably be the least relevant factor.
Actually, the generation the hardware was a huge part of it because they were so different with the CPU and GPU in 360 and the PS4.
And yeah, if I play LA Noire on both or Red Dead Redemption or any particular game, they both look exactly the same on both machines.
But there's a software component
from
to
the
that
development
too.
side.
There are
Yeah.
actually some differences with a lot of games. But
trivial differences.
well, I mean, some
the
games are a
user,
little
that's what you want it to seem like, but on the development side, they're headaches.
Well,
especially early
that
on.
was the thing with the last generation. It was a question of ease of development because the PS3 was very difficult to extract.
all that.
That's
power.
the part that's
performance
relevant
out
from
of
the
it.
developer
So
end.
now-
How easy is it to get good results?
So now they're both so similar that the disparity in how hard it is to make games is kind of gone.
Right,
And-
I mean, if you look at Unreal Engine, it took until 2 years ago to get Unreal Engine running well on PS3.
Early PS3 Unreal games were terrible.
And also on PC net side, also there's parity not only on 2 consoles but also closer to PC
It's
architecture.
x86. It's so yeah. The CPU, because it's an AMD Jaguar core on both machines, the 360 and the the Xbox. What's the preferred
We
nomenclature?
haven't decided yet. I don't know.
Is it the X1?
I mean, Xbox One is only 3 syllables. I mean,
Can we just call it the
Are we really
Xbox?
that pushed for time?
the new Xbox?
I think we're spending more time discussing this.
That's more syllables.
Xbox
the
One.
new. Okay,
Xbox One.
Yeah, that's as many. Yeah.
Okay.
2 Jaguars. Jaguar is AMD's APU, which means it's graphics and CPU in one die, and it's equivalent to high-end AMD graphic or high-end AMD CPU, 7,000 level graphics.
Right.
That's fine.
So
That's all you need to know.
well, hold on. The shader units is important though, because
So this is the graphics core next, GCN.
Right.
That's the architecture for AMD. But within the cores, they group them, how many cores there are. So
right.
I think there are fewer number in the Xbox, which means the total number of shader units, compute units.
It's half.
is
significantly lower.
It's not half. There's 50% more in the PS4.
It's like
so
700
about
and something
two-thirds.
versus 1100
Oh,
something.
right. 768 versus 1152.
So 50% more technical compute and shader power
Right.
on the PS4.
But that's only one piece of the puzzle, right? Like
That is
we're in no
yes.
way saying it's going to be 50% faster.
No, not at all.
This is
Not at all.
one aspect
They make up
of it.
for it in different ways.
Well, so the thing is, it depends on the game. Like this stuff always depends on the game. In the old days, games were almost all fill rate limited, and fill rate had to do with memory bandwidth. So the more memory bandwidth you had, the higher your frame rate was going to be. And when I say the old days, I mean like DirectX 7 and 8, not DirectX 7 and previous, really.
That was back when dropping your resolution on the
Exactly.
PC would get you a lot more frames.
The number of pixels you decrease would give you a commensurate increase in frame rate.
Right.
If that happens, then you're fill rate limited.
You know how we always say like in the new era it's all about consumer experience and not specs.
Yes.
I feel like this is a good moment to remind everybody. Like, well, I could not. I as an end user, I could not care less about this stuff.
But there is a huge segment of the audience online who is
Oh, sure, they love to pick. Of course, they love
screaming
to pick
themselves
apart
blue in the
every
face right now.
specification. Of course.
So yeah, if you want to look at it okay, let's go ahead and talk about the two other things that are different. Both machines have 8 gigabytes of RAM. The PS4 has GDDR5, which is essentially the same memory that's on your video card, your high-end video card. It's very, very fast, very expensive, relatively short supply. It is an expensive component. And
Here's the technical baseline that I actually am interested in.
Okay.
So GPU power,
Yeah.
like graphical power,
Yeah.
of the PS4 and the Xbox One.
Yeah.
How does that compare to the PC GPU architecture? So we're talking about Titans and 680s
It's the
and
same
780s.
stuff.
Like, but where is it on that scale?
It's on 6 months ago AMD's
Yeah.
Mid-high range. Not all the way high range, but not exactly between middle and high range.
It's the classic thing of console developers are able to get so much closer to the hardware with the software they're writing. That
Right,
they will
because
get way more.
they know they're writing to one dedicated hardware set.
Well,
right?
I mean, the platform vendor allows them to get that much closer because there is no other variable to account for. They can expect 100% of the machines to be exactly the same.
exactly. There's one configuration.
Right. So I mean, because you got the Xbox 360 was like a Radeon 19 it was like a two.
I can't remember what the nomenclature was back then, but it was the first DX9 programmable
and
GPU.
the GPU in the 360 is like a 10-year-old GPU.
Well, and interestingly,
it's
of
not
course,
that old.
on the
It was
360,
new at the time.
Okay.
there were so many
1800
different.
maybe?
There were so many different SKUs
9700.
that developers actually they had to work around. They had to work around whether or not there was a hard drive, whether or not there was Kinect, whether or not it was connected online. With the new one, I guess all of those things are kind of locked in. Like
One
they know,
SKU.
they know that all those things are going
Did
to
they
be
say?
there.
Well, they didn't say one SKU, did they?
Phil Harrison said
Did
one
he come
SKU.
out? And
He said,
There's a
from
500
what I understand,
They implied it in the
One
presentation. They just listed specs. They
which
didn't,
doesn't necessarily mean one price.
Yeah.
But-
well, that's getting into business models.
We should talk about
We'll
that.
talk about
subsidies
that.
and blah blah blah.
But that's another relief for developers to know that they don't have to worry about. Well, that we would love to address the hard drive space, but we can't guarantee that every
So
user
there's
has
a
it.
512 gigabyte hard drive in in all of these boxes is what they list.
Right.
Pathetic.
Well, anyway,
Isn't that more than in any current generation
We're
console?
talking about 30 gig Blu-ray discs, and all games will be able to download.
How many games are actually going to be 30 gig?
Well, maybe not.
Not
So
now.
maybe 20 gigs,
maybe
but
toward the end of the
between
life.
everything
But,
and
but
deep
you
functionality.
can use external hard drives. With
Yeah.
this
They
thing.
did not say specifically whether the external hard drives will be only Microsoft sold hard drives.
I'm sure
or
there'll be
any-
only Microsoft sold hard drives.
which would suck.
Well, suck it down, man.
There you go. That's why it's 500 gigs.
All right, keep going.
Okay, so the memory difference is substantial because there's memory bandwidth is really important for performance. The GDDR5 is twice as fast. It's 2133 versus I can't remember what
2133 is on the GDR3.
right.
I don't know exactly what the
I can't remember what the other one was off the top of my head. I didn't write it down, unfortunately.
Well, the bandwidth is like 176 gigabits per second versus like
63.
68 or something
Yeah.
like that. So it's a huge difference.
So that is a potential. The only other thing that's important to note is the 32 megabytes of fast ESRAM on the die. We don't know how it's used. It could be a cache. It could be to interconnect communication between the two dies on the package. Could be any number of
The
things.
thing I've read and heard is that it's largely going to be used to feed the GPU.
Right. So typically you have high speed memory on a GPU on a PC because the GPU can absorb data much faster than the system can send it out.
Can feed it.
So it needs a place to write and read stuff, which it seems like the PS4 is probably closer to a traditional PC architecture. The only difference is that instead of having a separate batch of PC system memory and graphics memory, it's writing exclusively. It's sharing the high speed stuff between both of them,
Right.
which could give it really crazy performance compared to even modern PCs. The 360 takes the other approach and uses the slow system memory for both graphics and CPU. Now, the upshot of this, and what Gary alluded to a minute ago, is it probably doesn't matter because as long as these both have relatively equal market share, developers are going to write for the least common denominator,
absolutely.
Which is the Xbox.
So, which is going to be the Xbox.
Think back and name a generation where the more powerful console won the generation because it was more powerful. Like you can't because there isn't one.
It's the only thing that matters is market share.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it boils down to.
Right.
Is how many units they
PS1
do.
over N64.
Right.
But
Like PS2, PS2 over the original Xbox. You know,
Yeah.
360
At
over
that-
PS3.
yeah.
Genesis was a more
Well,
kind of.
it was
was-
more games at that point.
yeah, it was sort of apples and oranges.
I mean,
there.
as Brad rightly says, history proves it's the least compelling factor every
right.
time.
Yeah. It's appeal to the consumer. It's features and games that people want.
The people that are on Twitter and instantly reacting and taking it apart on the message boards, that's a small fraction of the overall mainstream user base that most people are going to go in and buy this thing based on games, experience, functionality. Yeah, exactly.
So,
they're not
regardless-
going to care about whether the GPU die is feeding the fucking
Well, that's- and
flip-flop
that's the
matrix.
point.
Like nobody cares.
There's hardware parity on the inside locally, but then Xbox also has stuff that's going to be computed offsite.
Well,
And they've said things like not latency sensitive things like AI and even graphics computed offsite.
Well, but more importantly, for people who play multiplayer stuff, if they're using Azure, which is their compute cloud, their equivalent of EC2 or of Amazon's EC2 or Rackspace's thing, basically what they're saying is, look, we can run dedicated servers using the systems that we have in the cloud to run things like SkyDrive and all of that. And that's a huge deal because that means you'll be suddenly playing console games that have 64 and 128 players in them instead of the 16 player limit that we have in most games.
Although
have
some of the
multiplayer maps
when
with
they started
deformable
talking
terrain
about
and
when they
persistent
started talking
things.
about offloading
Let's not talk over each other, guys.
some tasks to the cloud, in the post SimCity world we live in, some people got a bit wary about that.
There is a right way to do that and a wrong way to do that, right? It's the same
Hopefully
as anything else.
they will look at the EA case and
Right.
not do that.
I mean, the difference between EA and Microsoft is that Microsoft has a lot of experience doing server stuff, and EA, I would say, probably less so.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Microsoft has whiffed it pretty hard in some pretty.
Oh, Microsoft has fucked it up really
there
bad
was,
too.
so there was one Xbox Live outage like maybe 3 months ago, where like cloud saves and matchmaking and a bunch of stuff went down for like a night. It was like a Friday night. And it came to light that somebody at Microsoft had like forgotten to renew an Azure like security certificate.
Oh.
Like had just straight up neglected to do this very simple thing that brought the entire service down for an entire
Well,
night.
they have a history of that. Remember the time that they forgot to renew the Hotmail
Right, it
DNS?
was the exact same thing.
Yeah, no, the DNS.
No, but I mean, it was the same kind of example of just like this was just a
That
basic,
would be awesome if like
basic
all,
oversight.
That would be awesome if like all of Xbox Live like relied on like one guy at Microsoft like, with his foot on a dead man switch. Like basically just
like-
can't,
it's
he
basically-
just can't go to the bathroom.
It's like basically
Wanna get away?
Well, it's basically
It's
Homer.
Snickers.
It's basically Homer Simpson. Like your entire job is to press this one button every 24 hours,
Right.
and if you forget to do it, everything explodes.
The bird can do it just fine.
yeah.
it's drinking the water.
So I'm really curious how this I mean this seems like the focal point is the difference in RAM, but how these differences could manifest in the price of these things. I don't know how much extra that's going to add to manufacturing cost and how that's going to influence.
And you know,
I think price is going to be really interesting because both of these systems seem really heavily loaded, particularly the Xbox One with the Kinect sensor and everything else. I mean, these aren't going to be cheap to make.
Let's talk about. You want to talk about pricing after we get through the hardware?
GDDR5. The only thing I would say is that if you're looking at the two components, the GDDR5 is crazy expensive compared to DDR3.
So I read a really interesting article. I don't know if you guys saw it a while back about it was all speculative, but these specs have all proven it to be true. And actually, the only surprise I think about all the specs was how accurate the rumors were. But the article speculated that Microsoft made a bet on having 8 gig of RAM like years ago. And that's why they went with DDR3 because we know that will be produced at scale. We know we can get that at a reasonable price. That's why the ES RAM is in there to make up for that difference. And then
DDR3 will still scale and get cheaper over a lifespan of this
the
console.
speculation about the PS3.
It may have bottomed out by
and
now.
I had kind of like heard this through the grapevine that even people in the development community were shocked that that thing ended up having 8 gig was because the density started doubling on GDDR5 production, and they were able to like stick with the same number of chips on the board but have double the capacity. So that was just kind of like a late in the game
worked out for
It was
Sony.
sort of like just a serendipity.
They took a gamble and it
yeah, it
paid
was
off.
serendipity that they were able to kind of upgrade that.
Well, yeah,
spec.
because the memory controllers are built into the dies on the GPU, CPU, somewhere in the Jaguar system. So like that, those decisions have to be made a long time ago, well before the CPUs were taped out. Okay, so other hardware stuff. It requires a Kinect. It comes with a Kinect. Requires it has to be plugged in to work. This is new. The new Kinect,
but again, though, there's some fuzziness on that, right? As there are on a lot of these issues.
I don't think there was any fuzziness on them saying it had to be plugged in to work.
Oh, I saw some fuzziness.
Like, so if the Kinect is not plugged in, then your Xbox One will not do. Like, what? It won't turn on. Or?
He said the statement out of Microsoft said. Am I wrong here? It said that it had to be plugged in to work.
Phil Harrison
They did
said
say
he did
that.
not. He said that like the example with the dog knocking over the Kinect. What happens? He said, "Oh, I don't know."
I think
I
there
don't know
was
what
some
happened.
contradictory or like not conclusive statements from different spokespeople.
They were
that-
very inconsistent.
The,
with their
the press
messaging.
were able to kind of highlight some
Yeah,
inconsistencies
yeah.
and
So
create.
it's particularly with the used game fee stuff. Like there were very contradictory messages coming out on that stuff.
So a couple other things is it has to be plugged in. I mean it works in the dark. It has a much wider field of view than the existing Kinect. The Wired story, I think, highlighted their demo house with like 4 different rooms, like a European living room, a Japanese living room, an American living room, and then an American dorm room.
I mean, Jeff used the thing.
Oh, he did?
at the event. And he said it identified 4 out of the 6 people in front of it without a problem.
What was the
I've spoken to-
distance? I know technically 6 people with skeletal.
It was a brief Skype call. We didn't get into a lot of detail.
I'm someone who really doesn't like Kinect. I always loved the promise of it, but I felt like the hardware just wasn't ready to deliver on that promise. But from what I have heard from people that have used the new one, have said like this is what it was supposed to be in the first place.
Did you
It
see-
actually does what it always promised
stuff
it would
the stuff
now.
that they demoed is exactly what I would be excited about doing with it, which is basic interface access stuff. You know, like not having to pick up a controller to turn on the system to get to things.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay,
I don't want to
Xbox.
play. I don't want to play like a first-person shooter. I don't want to play any games with that thing. Really, like maybe Double Fine, Happy Action Theater notwithstanding. Like I don't want to play games with it, but if it works like it's supposed to for getting through the dashboard, like that sounds great.
Steel Battalion 2. It could be. Maybe it's going to work this time,
Speak
man.
that
throw-
name
throw
in my
a football.
presence.
Now,
Madden.
when you say navigating to the dashboard, are you talking about voice commands or are you talking about gestures? And
Either
things?
or,
Okay.
or either and, like we'll see how they could be used in concert. But a lot of the stuff they showed, assuming that stuff, you guys think that was a live demo? You don't think that was like pre-recorded?
It
and he
seemed
was,
like it may have been live.
rehearsed. Like it.
How
It was
quickly
it was really. I was watching for that, like because we all remember that Star Wars Kinect demo where clearly it was out.
Lightsaber on.
It was doing the stuff was happening on screen before the person was actually making the gesture, and it kind of
If it was-
clearly was not real.
If
but
it was fake, it was very well rehearsed. If it looked real.
if there was anything fake about what they were doing, no one has spotted any inaccuracies,
Right.
and it seemed very, very snappy, and
Responsive.
I kept expecting the guy. I mean, obviously, he must have rehearsed this 50 times, right? Because the death sentence is if something goes wrong on the stage,
Right.
Like the guy says.
Xbox, yeah.
and it blows up. Or something.
But the really basic like Apple-esque
sorry, I can't
gestures
do
of
that.
just kind of like like it was essentially pinch to zoom kind of stuff.
Right.
Just very intuitive, like
Right.
kind of basic motions.
So what
that
allows the
anybody can
new
understand.
Kinect to do that the old Kinect couldn't, aside from having high resolution sensor and,
it's-
and more processing power?
So it's going through USB 3. I know there is some dedicated Kinect processing in the box.
There's a CPU on the Kinect.
Right.
That people are.
Well, is that in the camera or in the
I
system?
don't know if it's in the system
So
or on the box.
something we had heard about the original Kinect was that very late in the game they removed processing from the actual Kinect and offloaded it to the system, which is one of the big reasons it became so laggy. It never felt like it was exactly one-to-one because it was making the system do all the work.
Right.
So
Or because the Xbox CPU was already stressed.
The new
right? It was-
sensor does look a lot like bigger and blockier. Like there's probably more hardware in there now than before.
Wider camera.
Well, the wired has pictures of the inside of the sensor. There's an IC on the board. We don't know what it is.
okay.
And so things that you can do, you can detect not only more points of your skeleton, but also your rotation.
Yep.
The shoulder joint, the way the shoulder joint works. is
It's got
more
basic
advanced.
articulation in the hands. It can't do fingers, but I believe it can do thumbs and then sort of like one.
Right, one
flippers?
One
gloves.
input for your flippers and
like
one
gloves,
for
yeah.
thumbs, and it
Penguin
can see like
style.
hand rotation and stuff.
When Jeff did the demo, did they have it in the bubbles that they used to do the Kinect demos in? Did he say?
He said it was a very spacious room.
Okay.
That was kind of all he said.
So maybe I'd be interested to hear.
like definitely not a San Francisco apartment living room.
Okay.
Did you see the list of things that the Kinect is always monitoring for in the wired video?
Dongs.
Well, it's always monitoring for like like your level of happiness, like your smile.
Oh, that's right. It can detect heartbeat.
Well, by skin color.
Subtle pigmentation changes in your
right.
face is supposedly how it sees heartbeat.
But
No, a lot of people are finding this creepy, right? They think
I
like
think it's
they feel
creepy.
like Hal is now in their living
Yeah.
room, and they don't like that.
I'm going to put a little hat
the
over
gamer
mine.
is scared now. Let's throw more shit at
And
him.
it could get worse. I mean, there was that nightmare scenario of that patent Microsoft filed a while back that was doing physical DRM based on the number of people in the room. Like if you rent a movie, you're only authorized for 4 people to watch it.
Oh, and it can tell you it knows how many faces are there.
Yeah.
Everyone has to wear
that
a
I could
mask.
believe we'll eventually go down that kind of road. That is a bit.
there is technology in this. They talked about it that can I forget
Hollywood.
what all the inputs it's taking are, but between facial recognition and there's also a sensor on the controllers now where it can tell the controllers apart. So you're not going to have to.
Oh,
sign
so
in.
that black thing has
There's-
like lights in the front that are
There's a
infrared or
little
something?
emitter. I think it's an IR emitter that it's looking for actually, but
So if you switch left to right,
well, the net result of this is you'll never supposedly have to manually sign into your profile again. It will just see your face and know which controller you're on and sign you in on that controller without you touching.
Well, and I mean, presumably when the guy doing the demo said Xbox on, the Xbox is recognizing the voice that
Right.
says Xbox on
Right.
and signs you into that profile.
So wait, is that going to mean that my wife's going to have a live gold so that she
know.
can use Netflix?
I don't know.
Because that's bunk.
I mean, if they put Netflix behind the paywall again,
They're going to.
Well, I mean,
Dude,
they've
that's
always had
insane.
family plans, right? But,
No,
probably can't.
they've killed the family. The family plan
have
still
they?
exists, but
so
yeah.
that's one of the big questions about these two systems is that Microsoft's over here making a lot of money charging for Xbox Live.
for essentially nothing at this
Sony,
point.
yeah, exactly. Sony's over here giving away their online service, which is not great.
wishing they were charging for it.
I feel like there's a margin where they both can live, and it's going to shift one. It's like the political idea of the Overton window, if you're familiar with that.
No. Sounds
it's,
good though.
It's sort of what defines liberalism and conservatism, and it's like the bounds are set, but it shifts back and forth on the spectrum. So it's kind of the same thing for these guys. It's like either Microsoft's going to start charging for more online stuff, and Sony will have to or they'll have the leeway to follow suit and charge for.
I love this. This is some intelligent shit. I love it.
Or
Windows.
or do you see what I'm saying though?
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
Or Sony's going to stick to their guns of we're the free online service, come to us for more value, and then Microsoft's going to have to
Well,
scale back.
it's always been one of the biggest points of differentiation between the two, right? Superior online service that you have to pay for versus perfectly functional but kind of
Right.
more bare bones service, online service that's free.
So
And
one I
superior
think-
online service is what Microsoft really touted
yeah,
in the
absolutely.
conference. So
Yeah.
300,000 servers, that's online service.
I've always tried to not be cynical, but my assumption is that it's going to skew in the direction of paying more money.
Well, I think
Netflix-
there's a good chance that you're going to see what an Xbox Live membership means. Given that
At
TV is
E3?
being folded into all this,
Yeah.
it's probably going to change substantially.
Sure.
Yeah.
Netflix is such an egregious example, though. Like my TV has a Netflix app in it.
Yes, everything I own has Netflix.
How can they
in it.
charge for that?
Well, they flip the switch that says this only works for gold members. I just
a bullet point.
Like it's interesting because one of the reasons people complain about Steam in the original when Steam was instance was that it made games go from per computer to per user, and the same things happened with Live. Especially since all of the purchases are going to be tied to a user account. So when you buy one of the things we haven't talked about yet, but is discs. When you buy a disc, you're essentially buying a token
Yep.
to use that game. It installs. You put the disc in the drive. It installs that game to the hard drive, and then that game is attached, presumably, to your user account forever and ever.
Yeah.
And
The disc
theoretically,
also
it will
works-
also use the same rules it uses now, where whichever machine it was first installed on, it has a perennial license to that. So if you
any-
have one Xbox
I
and
want to
4
say
kids,
I want to say they confirmed that.
Oh, they did, okay.
I might be wrong, and that's how it works now. Is that with XBLA games, any
or
profile
downloaded games.
Yeah,
for that matter.
any profile can play the full game on the system it was purchased on.
Right.
But if you play it on any other Xbox, only the profile that purchased it can play it.
Which makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
for example, when I downloaded Burnout Paradise so that Gina and I could play together, it's not a split screen game. I downloaded it on the living room Xbox. She played on the living room Xbox,
Yep.
and then I go play in the Xbox in the den.
Right.
It doesn't work the other way.
Right.
So
If they stick
I'm
to that,
okay with that.
If they stick to that, I think that's sensible. I'm not going to say generous, but it's at least
well, it's more generous than Steam.
absolutely.
And where are they on the used games issue? Because that obviously was the thing that people were kind of most contentious about.
So the disc actually still works the token. If you take your disc over, the disc authenticates and lets you.
If your user ID
you're using your profile.
If you're using the profile, you need the disc and the profile.
So here's-
but I can't just give or sell my game to you to
No,
go
you
away
can.
and play, right?
Well, you can, but then they would also have to pay the fee to Microsoft to actually license the game.
What's
And
the fee,
then-
Brad?
Yeah, what would the
That's the thing that
Brad,
the
what's
messaging.
the fee?
That's the
Full
thing
price.
the messaging was so mixed on, but it seems
price.
like it's whatever full price is at the time.
No, come on. Surely it would have to be some kind of tiered used game pricing system.
because at this point they
Sorry,
consider
GameStop.
the disc no more an important delivery mechanism than downloading.
It's a key.
That's all it is. It's
It
just-
is a Steam key.
So people like us, I don't think anybody in this room will ever buy a physical disc game for this system. I think we'll just download everything.
Every game will be on
Did they
Xbox
say that?
Live.
yeah.
Every
I
game
think they said
will have
it, right?
any game that's on a disc will be available for download.
Right.
Fantastic.
So
why wait
we have no
in line?
use for discs
Yeah.
anymore.
So as opposed to Nintendo, where they seem to tie. I mean, the benefit of this, the good thing about this is that instead of where Nintendo ties downloads to the console,
Yeah,
perennially,
Nintendo exclusively uses hardware-based DRM.
Right.
3DS as well.
the at least with this, you're tying it to an account, and then that account comes with you.
Right.
Should you need to upgrade machines or your machine gets stolen or something like
And
that.
I pray to
Or
God that
dies.
Sony follows suit on this. I mean, I'm an edge case because we work on a bunch of different consoles at one
Yeah.
time, but ownership rights on the PS3 are an absolute nightmare. They're terrible.
Because you get like 2 downloads per.
You can only
right?
authorize 2 consoles to be able to play a game on with your account.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of real weird
Is-
guesswork going on there.
Is moving your Xbox Live account to someone else's Xbox still a pain in the ass right now?
It's so you can still put it on a USB stick.
Yeah.
But as of the last dashboard update they called it Cloud Profile, but all it really is that you can download your profile onto more than one system.
But how is
So
that still like a long process where
so they reduced the size of it. The download only takes like 30 seconds, but you still have to go on there and punch in your what are they calling it?
It's your live ID.
this week. Your live ID.
Your Hotmail account.
Yeah,
password.
like your Hotmail account, basically. But so the thing I'm wondering now is if they're talking about being able to go to other places and play your games, and they've got the whole like we know your face, we'll just sign you right in. I wonder if they're storing like the facial recognition data in the cloud.
I'm gonna have photos of all my
sure.
friends.
Do you think that
life-size photos put on
With
popsicle
like
sticks.
masks and
Yeah, so it's like, no, I don't have his HBO
you
account.
think people-
pull up the Will photo, and then like, oh no, they see a picture of a kid in the room. Right, there's a kid in the room. Kid, you got to put up a daddy photo. So
It's
the
just
picture
gonna
of
be
adult.
like QR codes and like Pokemon cards now.
Yeah.
Like people are just gonna download scans of faces to get ownership of stuff.
What was that? What was that Sony game with the cards, the playable card game? Eye of
Eye of Judgment.
I have judgment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, you just download the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if like once your Xbox learns your face, if that's just going to be up in the
Well,
server
and
area.
you know how like if they actually get this right, and if the technology really does progress to this point, and maybe with this generation, maybe the next. But you know how like you create a Tiger Woods golfer and you painstaking little Mass Effect, you kind of model the face and they
then you end up with the horror beyond
they do
imagining.
Yeah, it always
Yes,
looks like,
I
you always look like a
remember.
horrific burn victim or whatever. But it would be great to sit down and just have it instantly, really accurately map my face, and I'm in the game. That would be
magical.
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
stand in front of the Kinect and spin in a circle.
I mean,
You stand on a lazy Susan.
the camera in this thing is 1080p, and Anand was speculating that the depth
The IR
sensor
camera,
is
yeah.
also 1080.
One of the things they said is it's a per pixel basis for the depth map, rather and for the motion tracking stuff, rather than if you ever looked at your living room when the Kinect was on through like your phone camera,
right. You can see all the
and
dots
saw all
everywhere.
the IR dots everywhere.
Yeah.
Like the dots are far apart.
Right. So that's of extremely low resolution.
Theoretically, we should have much higher resolution now with this new one, with this new Kinect. Works in the dark. So my living room never works with the Kinect because I don't have any lights on the wall with the TV. They're all behind. So that means you're always backlit and it
Yeah,
can
like I
never
said, there
tell who
were
you are.
all kinds of problems with the first generation Kinect.
Yeah.
So it was too
Yeah,
light,
so
too bright,
so
not far
well.
enough, too
It
far
was
away.
a prototype that went to market and sold 18
I
million
agree.
units.
I don't
Like,
think
it was- I think it's a-
I don't think it should ever have been brought to
the
market.
quality
in
of
that
the product
iteration.
is a fucking embarrassment. Like it was ridiculous.
Mine's not even plugged in anymore. It's
Yeah.
like it's in a box of like my disused hardware.
Mine's
But-
on for
But I,
voice
still, but I
commands.
believe that this second generation will.
That's the thing.
We'll see more use
Like
because I think it
all-
actually will be better this.
all the revulsion at the Kinect is at the execution, right? Like the promise of it. If
Yeah, the idea
Great,
is
it's
good.
always a
is
terrific
amazing.
idea.
It's
Always a terrific
amazing.
idea.
Yeah.
Well, so the question. I mean, I think that like Rock Band instruments and DDR pads and Wii's was sold on the promise of parents looking at their kids bouncing around the living room rather than sitting on the couch playing Call of Duty, right?
Sure.
And I think that this, like, are they going to buy it again? Like, this is the third time, conceivably. I mean, I guess you can't get the new Xbox without
yeah,
Kinect.
it's
so
there.
You're in.
and the first Kinect, people gave it a pass because really kids don't care as long as there's
Yeah.
some feedback.
Yeah.
Like calling
Dude, did you
kids.
ever-
The
that
kids
Disneyland
are happy
game
to just
was
like.
grim.
I mean, that's why the most popular Kinect stuff I think is like Happy Action Theater, where you can just
Yeah.
spaz
Yep.
around
Yep.
and there's no
Fruit Ninja,
position
Central,
required.
flail your arms all
yeah,
over the
Dance
place.
Central.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you can power on with, we mentioned this, but you can power on with voice commands. And they say that the field of vision is 60% larger. One of the things that they showed was somebody who was really tall standing right, like 3 feet away from it, which would never, like, I can't, my living room is too small for it right now. And it's like 6 feet
In
deep.
the demos, they show where the Kinect was placed relative to the TV.
I don't know.
Was it above the TV, below the TV?
I didn't ask. I would hope so, though. I hope you could do that.
Yeah, right now mine's above. It doesn't look like it has the little bow, though, like the tilt.
Oh no, it doesn't.
Deep
It doesn't.
bow.
It's not motorized
I want a
anymore. I
deep
guess
bow
because
for my
because the oh no, that was so awesome that thing would bow to you.
I'm gonna go ahead and my
Sear Bauer.
I'm announcing a Kickstarter right now. I'm gonna Kickstarter a Kinect hat,
motorized
so that you
stand.
can put it over top of it, so that the see in the dark, always listening camera, always on, always listening camera isn't catching my private intimate moments. in my living room.
I'm not one of these. I'm not one of these people that feels like that's all going back to the NSA or whatever. I know there are people that feel that way.
I mean, somebody's probably going to like packet sniff whatever's coming out of that system immediately. Just
But what,
do it,
but,
yeah.
what Brandon was saying, I actually find almost kind of believable. That like two people are sitting around watching a movie, a third person sits down, and the Xbox says, "Well, hold on, that's going to be an extra. That's going to be an extra $3.
$3.
Seriously,
Well,
right?
makes more
I mean,
sense that-
that's not beyond the realms.
way to
of-
go,
For the
Hollywood.
child thing, at least, they'll start off saying, okay, if the Kinect detects a kid and you're watching a rated R movie, then it'll pop up a warning. Are you sure
my
you want to let the
God.
kid watch the rated R movie? And it'll start that way, and then it'll go to once.
Yeah,
we
I mean,
get used to that-
actually, I can actually see it having legitimate parental control applications.
Yeah, fascist. Fascist Hollywood, man.
You're a parent now, Will. You
goddamn.
you have to be fascist.
Peter Dinklage can't watch Game of Thrones.
I'm just that's wow, dude.
I don't even know how to start with that.
Norm. Let's
continue.
talk about the gamepad. They replaced the circle pad that nobody likes with the traditional Nintendo
I like
Plus
it.
pad.
Four-way-
I like
four-way D-pad.
the current transforming
The twisty
one, I
one's
think is
good.
perfectly
I
fine.
like the twisty one.
It's perfectly fine. I was surprised to see that because Nintendo has had a patent on that.
2005 it expired.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
And they can't renew that.
Patents are not renewable.
That's just it for
That's
them?
it for the Plus.
So anybody can do the Plus now.
I supposedly.
No kidding.
So quite sensibly, this obviously is the one part of the equation that they chose not to mess with too much because the 360 pad is pretty damn good.
Like it
new one looks good too.
of all
I'm saying because they didn't change very much.
it seems like the big thing that they changed is that the kind of nub on the back where the batteries hang off has now been replaced with a flatter,
It's
more
flush with the
But
house.
still
So
replaceable.
the guide button is now kind of
Oh,
like
I don't know.
lifted, it's like up and away and it's like a little
It's
illuminated
kind of above,
jewel now.
above the face of the controller.
Yeah.
In a kind
There's
of
a
weird
silhouette for the main controller, and then like above that, it's like a different material finish.
Place. Yeah,
and
it almost
it's
looks like
taller.
when you plugged in the charging cable on the
Yeah.
old one. It's almost like the base of that cable is what that looks like.
Force feedback in the triggers. Did I read that right?
Yes. So there
That
are
could be cool.
There are 4 motors now for force feedback. They in the past they had 2. They had one big one and one small one. So they
Right.
still have those, and now there's also one attached to each trigger.
Right.
But there's no resistance on the triggers, which I was disappointed.
well,
to hear.
there's a spring, but it's not like
But
like
or
force
no
feedback
variable resistance.
Yeah.
I was thinking like for Forza, like the more you push down like the brake pedal, the harder it is to push. I was hoping you'd get some of that, but it's not. It's
So
not.
That would be cool.
This is haptics, not force feedback. Just to be clear.
Okay.
It looks like that plastic on the front is the reason I thought it was an IR thing, so it can detect which controller is which.
Yeah.
Is that plastic looks like the kind of shiny
Like an IR.
Did they explain-
Jeff said that's what.
Plastic.
that's
Did they
for.
explain what the little dual screen button was? There's like a little button on the
That
pen
looks like a
2
multitasking
screens
button.
overlaid.
That's sort of like that's kind of
Snap
similar to
button.
what Apple uses for the expose key on their keyboards. Like
Yeah.
it's just 2 windows implies like 2.
So in Windows
apps,
8, there's a snap
Oh, the
mode,
snap feature?
the
Okay.
220 pixels.
Yeah.
They're gonna have that in Xbox.
And that's on that is a Windows 8 icon.
And someone else pointed this out. I guess there's no longer any concept of a headset. You just would use the Kinect microphone.
No. There's a port.
There's
on the
a port on the
bottom.
bottom.
Oh, is
In fact,
there?
They talked about it. It's
the port won't work with your existing headsets.
no, well, because
course
it is a like a data. I think it's custom, but it's essentially like a USB port now. Because like the current ones just have an analog headphone jack, but
Right.
this one is it
You
looks
can
like
plug a chat pad into it.
something like
assume.
that. But they said
Chat
it's,
pad's always good to have.
So they said this new port will actually be able to power a 5.1 headset,
Oh,
Oh, great.
Great.
Oh, that would be cool.
which I'm sure they'll be happy to sell you for $79.99.
not excited.
I guess they'll open that up to third parties, but
Why? Why would they?
No, I like the idea of that. You know, you stay up late gaming, you don't want to wake up other
that's true.
people in the
Sure.
house.
Like it probably is going to enable way better or way higher quality voice chat and that kind of thing.
It's better than the existing option, which is take your weird 5.1 headset and then run a cable from the controller up to that.
There's no great solution for that. So this hopefully will be good.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like what they did with the Roku 3, right? They added the headset.
Yeah, except
function.
for that's pretty dumb, I think.
I'm curious to see what the microphone looks like on the Kinect, if it's as directional as like the creative stuff.
Well, so
was
that's one of those other things that's changed in the last 8 years is the ability to filter out background noise based on what's playing is much better
And
now
very,
than it was
very
before.
directional.
Yeah.
Like I was setting up Mumble on the PC last night, and like all the algorithms and sliders and stuff for like what's signal to noise and what's human voice and what's like hum, seem really advanced now.
And the stuff that like one of the things that blew me away the other day is I was walking on the street talking to somebody on the phone, and I was standing right next to a fountain. Like something that traditionally you would think, oh, they're never going to be able to hear me next to this. And I was like, can you hear me okay? And my father was like, yeah, it's fine. You know, I was like, you realize I'm standing right next to this.
And
Okay.
you don't even have HD voice.
Whereas, like with the current Kinect, I don't know if you've ever played multiplayer games with somebody who's using that as their voice input.
it's terrible.
Horrendous.
Unlistenable.
Horrendous.
It's unusable.
Yeah.
But yeah,
They're bad people.
The mic spans the whole base of that new Kinect, so you would hope there's some kind of
Multiple
directionality to it.
I mean, presumably they want to use it for Skype, so it's got to have some degree of quality.
Yeah,
There was a lot of derision about that Skype demo, but I mean, like if it's a 1080p camera, like that could be pretty useful for people.
I have
paying one of the Cisco boxes.
Yeah.
Well, that thing's dead.
It doesn't exist. Yeah.
At this point, I've said this before on the podcast, and I'm sure you're in the same boat as me, Gary. But my feelings about the video chat stuff have changed dramatically since the birth of a child. Like I was completely wrong about the value of FaceTime and video Skype and all of that stuff.
I've probably spent more time on FaceTime and Skype since the baby was born in the 10 months that we've had the baby, in all the years that technology has been around, because it is the number one application.
Yeah. My parents send me a text every Sunday morning. They're like, hey, we're on Wi-Fi.
It's time for the baby show.
Yeah. Show me the baby.
And if there's actually a good quality camera in the living room, that's going to be great for that.
Yeah. The OS, I think, is super interesting. They kind of touched on this in the big keynote, but then they got into more detail in the tech thing that followed up, which I unfortunately missed. But Anantech and ZDNet both had good kind of write-ups about it. There's 3 OSs, which is what they said on the stage, which is kind of disingenuous. One of the OSs is a hypervisor, and a hypervisor. They're running virtualized OSs on this console, which is the thing you should take away. And when we say virtualized OSs, we don't mean like running VirtualBox or VMware or something like that on a desktop where you have Windows and then you have another OS running inside Windows.
Right.
What a hypervisor does is it's a very low level OS that runs on the metal and then virtualizes everything out to equal OSs.
You can think of them as like sandboxes, right? They don't
Pretty
interact or touch.
Hypervisor is a proprietary Microsoft thing, so it's not. It's like
I like
their
no,
hypervisor.
No. They're using their hypervisor is a class of thing, and Microsoft has a proprietary.
This is
one.
just a little geeky factoid, but I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Dave Cutler. Does that ring any bells? The guy they hired.
No.
So there's a single guy who wrote the whole hypervisor for this thing, and I think it's awesome that in this day and age, for a piece of machinery this complex, that one guy can still architect like an entire subsystem for it. It was the guy they described as like having invented the operating system. I'm not sure who he was, but
so the hypervisor, I'm sorry, I don't remember.
that's fine.
The benefit of this is that you have a very low level OS. Performance in each of the VMs is better than it would be on if you were running it inside. Like, for example, if they were running Windows on this and then we're running the Xbox VM inside this, the performance is better if you're running on the hypervisor.
Very low overhead.
Very, very, very low overhead.
And they said during this panel that the set percentage of resources are allocated to these two things at all times. So it's not like the heavier the game load is, the worse your apps are going to perform, because the apps always have that minimum threshold of computing.
That sounds like the kind of thing they're going to fudge over time.
Maybe.
Especially for first party stuff.
Yeah.
But the benefit is right now when you hit the Xbox controller and it takes a second for the blade thing to pop up, whatever they call that now. From the demos that they were showing on stage, assuming they were live, it's much more
Very
responsive.
Should all
than
be
that.
The thing that I actually thought was most impressive was the snapping between like completely different applications, like whether it be TV, game, like it was instantaneous. It was
So
pretty cool.
there's a Windows NT kernel running at all times. that they can just
Yeah, so
that's for
pull
the
from memory.
app layer, right?
So the
I believe.
hypervisor is one OS.
Yeah.
The Windows kernel, which runs apps, and it seems like Kinect input
Yeah.
and stuff like that, is the second OS. And then the third OS is the Xbox OS, which gives exclusive access to games.
Right.
And Netflix, something like Netflix would run in the Windows one. So you could watch Netflix and immediately jump into a game after it's loaded in the background.
I liked the way one of the engineers described it on that tech panel, which was that when they built 360, like apps on consoles didn't exist, and they built that thing purely as a games machine. They never even dreamed that like
Right, so they had to kind of bolt that stuff on later.
Right.
This obviously is from the ground up, meant to be capable of doing all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They were like, we can't see into the future and know what the next like big social media thing is going to be 2 years from now. So we're creating this like robust platform, and also. I don't know if you guys know, they have opened up software development to partners directly on this thing.
Oh, so so instead of them writing their Verizon app or the Comcast app?
All those terrible apps that are on the 360 now that were all done like in-house or in partnership with Microsoft, like I think there is just an API now that people can make their own apps.
Thank God.
Yeah.
And the API should be familiar
way
to
better.
anyone developing for Windows 8.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it should be modern Metro-style apps. So the interesting thing about all this hypervisor stuff is in the run-up to Windows 7, the release of Windows 7, when Vista was tanking really badly, this hypervisor thing was one of the concepts that they had put forward for not Windows 7, but Windows after, which ended up being Windows 8. And it could be something that we still end up seeing in a future version of Windows, where you run core stuff on one VM in the hypervisor, and each app has its own VM, essentially.
What a great buzzword.
Hypervisor. It's an old term. It came from the 70s. It was originally conceived of in like the mid 70s.
It's the thing above the supervisor.
Hypervisors are a year older than me, so there you go. The task switching stuff seems good. They talked a lot about TV stuff. We have seen TV pass through of this nature in the past with Google TV and kind of the Wii U. Even it hasn't been very good. If they bring the kind of performance that they showed in the demo, it may be more interesting. But I'm a TiVo user, and I'm happy with the TiVo. And if this can't, I don't see how this is not going to have the same problem as the Google TV had with the PVR on the device. Where if you have a PVR on your cable box, I don't see how this TV viewing experience is going to be useful.
This is not for those people. They want people to get off TiVo. And
For the most part, yeah, it's really just replicating a feature that. You have another box that does it already. For me, personally, I find it attractive in the sense that I'm tired of switching between inputs all the time. I just had to buy a thing that had 6 HDMI inputs. So anything that minimizes those. And the constant awareness is nice. Like I could be sitting at home on a Sunday evening watching Downton Abbey on live television, and actually I can get a friend request, you want to go play Gears of War? I'll go do that.
Well, and I guess, you're right. I have built a lot of ecosystem to support shitloads of devices hooked up to the TV. I have a crazy universal remote that turns on the receiver and the TV and whichever thing I want to watch and switches it all to the right inputs. And if they use the HDMI control stuff, you should be able to say Xbox on. The Xbox turns the TV to the right channel, sets the receiver to the right input, and you're good to go.
Right.
I don't know. I really, I'm pretty skeptical of ditching DVR for Hulu and Xbox Video.
Well, yeah.
And
well, so this is something.
Does it actually have like a coaxial cable input in the back of it?
No, it has HDMI pass through, so you'll still need a cable box.
This
is something that Patrick brought up because he is a cable subscriber.
So am I.
The DVRs you get from the cable company are complete fucking garbage. Like the interface is just atrocious.
The new
good.
Xfinity X1 is actually pretty good.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's better, but still, what if that box was still performing the recording of the shows, but you used the Xbox interface to navigate and access all of the programming?
So that was the fundamental problem with the Google TV. The Google TV sat between your PVR and your TV with the HDMI pass-through, and the only DVR that it could talk to was a Dish Network DVR box.
One specific model?
No. You had to use a Dish Network PVR.
Is it because
that was the only one
they didn't have the partnerships, or because of the hardware?
I'm sure it's because they didn't have the partnerships.
So that's my question about this thing. Do you think there's any possibility this feature will work with a company that they haven't, like a cable provider, they have not made a business deal with?
Oh, the HDMI pass-through might work, but you won't have access to PVR stuff.
Or even probably like the channel guide.
No,
and
you'll
stuff. You
channel
think so?
guide. They can license that data. That data's in the world.
You know, the biggest part of this stuff these days is not the hardware, it's the content deals.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
obviously they've already made a deal with Comcast, and all the major guys, Time Warner, Dish, they'll all have to sign on.
So
to it.
the nice thing about this is that it does allow context unaware search for content. So if you say, "Hey, I want to watch," show me HBO, it will change to the HBO channel, and you'll be able to watch HBO. If you say,
Did you
"I
mean
want to watch
HBO
NBC,"
Go, or did you mean HBO
well,
on
okay,
TV?
HBO is a bad example. I want to watch NBC. It puts you on the NBC HD channel. That's interesting. More interesting to me than that is if you say, "Hey, I want to watch 30 Rock." It says, "Okay, you have 30 Rock here on. It's live now. It's on Netflix. It's on Hulu, and it's on the NBC app."
So the Xfinity, the new
Comcast on
X1
demand.
box does that. If I search for 30 Rock, it'll give me a unified list of like episodes that are recorded on my DVR, things that are available on demand. The next time they're going to be shown on live TV, it's all.
And does it include Hulu and Netflix and all that other stuff too?
No, it doesn't go that far, but
Yeah.
that would be nice.
So TiVo does that now with its iPad app. It doesn't do it in the main UI. It would be really nice if it did. I mean, that's the future that I want to live in.
I've got 20 minutes left, by the way. So if you want to cover anything
Okay.
else, we should
Let's continue.
you-
The football stuff, interactive stuff, I thought was super vague and
the fantasy stuff.
I was like, not only that stuff, but then they did a whole thing with NFL commissioner and people on the side, the football players on the sidelines will be using Xbox technology, like super.
The fantasy stuff is interesting for people who are into fantasy football.
I mean, look,
if you're not into that, then you don't care.
I read an interesting piece in The Guardian the other day about how, the reaction to this, it's interesting. There was a lot of snark. There was a lot of cynicism, very mixed. There's apparently a book called "You Are Not a Robot," and the argument that the author makes is that in our hyper-connected age, where everyone's reacting instantly on the internet, the individual people become like neurons in the brain. They're just firing instantly. Like these knee-jerk reactions to every stimulus that comes at them. And so what you get are these instant reactions where everyone's racing to respond. We saw this during the Boston bombings, right? All this bullshit that came out because nobody processed anything properly. And if you go back all the way back to where we started here with the 360 launch, remember Velocity Girl? Like how much of what they promised or how much what they talked about the Xbox 360 experience was on the day actually ended up being relevant to what the experience really was over the long term. I think, all these presentations, you really have to kind of take them with a pinch of salt. And also, I think we have to get away from this culture of instant reaction. All those Twitter I was watching it live, and I was watching the Twitter reactions come in, and some are positive, some are negative. They were all over the map. But in almost all cases, I guarantee you this: whatever your instant reaction is to something, if you're racing to bash out a tweet the second you saw something, that reaction is probably worthless, because a proper reaction, an intelligent, thoughtful reaction to something, takes time to consider and process and think about. You can't just go, "Oh, I think this." That's probably the most worthless response you can make.
I'm going to watch you ever so closely during the WWDC keynote in a couple of weeks, Gary.
Well, I tend to go dark during those things.
I mean, incidentally,
for exactly this reason.
that type of reaction makes up probably 90% of the commentary that is posted to the internet.
Right.
Well, yeah, because you got to get out first.
But it's interesting. It's only now, a few days later, where people had the time to talk about the Xbox One, have had time to kind of look at the hardware and think about what this all means. We're now starting to see more considered and thoughtful reaction. I would rather read those pieces than the instant knee-jerk Twitter stream that's coming out the second somebody says something.
True that those reactions are worthless, but then you take them for what they are. They're entertainment.
I suppose. I mean, there was a lot of good snark. I mean, how much entertainment do we get out of the Call of Duty dog? I mean, that was
great.
They
there
are
was some pretty
totally going to kill that dog. That was my knee-jerk reaction. I absolutely know that's
Yeah,
true.
that's
that is a dead motherfucking dog.
That's the setting off the nuke moment of this game.
I have
Peter
never
Marlowe.
seen.
Yeah.
He's
Love the
walking.
dog.
I don't know. I mean,
dead dog walking,
I
man.
totally see that, but I can go either way on that.
The dog's going to die, and then you're going to jump into a helicopter as a
mocap
building
play
collapses.
dead.
I mean, it is telling that out of this entire presentation, that was the thing that people enjoyed the most, because think about how long we've sat here talking about the system without mentioning any games.
The dog was awesome.
And I was going to make the same point, that this is almost like the presentation itself, right? We talked about everything else except games, and that was the main. Hardcore gamers are like, where are the games? Where are the games? Presumably they're coming at E3.
Well, that's the thing. All of the discontent that's come out of this event, all these people going oh, Microsoft doesn't care about true gamers. All they care about is the bros and the NFL fans and the family. I don't feel like I can have an opinion about this thing yet, because they were very obviously getting all that stuff out of the way so they could just go hard on games at E3.
Yeah, I mean, I think their priority was, and there have been arguments about how well the messaging of this thing was managed, but
which are valid arguments.
clearly,
sure.
it seemed like their priority was to show off all the new things that it can do. And that's why people think, a lot of people seem to be assuming that because it does all these new things, it's going to be doing those things in place of playing games.
Right.
But obviously, I'm fairly confident that there are still going to be a lot of games.
I mean, here's but the thing is though, the kind of people. Why do you have a stream that you put on TV and you stream out to the internet? If the people who are watching that are the people who are core gamers,
because they need the announcement and they want you to get direct messaging.
yeah,
And
but
if you
the
have 1 hour,
but if they're messaging to the guys who play fantasy football and don't watch video game news, then why put that on the internet?
Well, I bet their
Because
gamble.
it's for analysts.
I bet their gamble is
Maybe.
that if we're going to show a big bulk of video games, the most people that care about that stuff will be watching at E3.
Fair, okay.
I mean, they have to get the media and the Skype stuff, like the cable TV stuff, out sometime.
Right.
That's true.
Like, think about every time you go to a press conference or watch one on the internet at E3.
Yeah.
And they spend 15 minutes
That's fair
demoing. Like, remember the Smart Glass demo during the Microsoft press conference last year? Like, how hard?
If they had gone to E3, a game-specific event, and talked about TV stuff for 45 minutes, that would have been much.
So
worse.
they're not gonna demo Skype again. So 17 days from now. It was a pretty rude awakening at the end of this thing.
Yeah,
when
that's
the big
bad.
E3 counter popped up, and it was like 19 days till E3. I was like, fuck.
I got to get plane tickets.
Yeah, same here. But that's the thing. Like, they just showed all this stuff. They're not going to demo Skype again at their E3 press
Fair enough.
conference.
This is
They're
going to be
not-
a good E3.
Like,
I mean, the first time in many years that we've seen two big systems
like
basically going
2000s.
head to head. It's crazy.
So, I mean, and they said at this thing, we are going to ship 15, I mean, it remains to be seen, but they said we're going to ship 15 first-party exclusive in the first year of this machine. Like
I don't doubt that.
That is a lot of exclusive games.
Viva Pinata
including
Connect.
a rare game. They're bringing back a rare game.
Viva Pinata.
I highly doubt that. But
The thing, so the big takeaway for me, and the reason the hardware is interesting when they got into the details, is that like this is a machine that they can build theoretically in mass quantity. Like there are no surprises on the hardware. There's nothing like doing the less intensive compute and GPU core means that they should be able to make shitloads of these and probably have been for a while. Doing DDR3 memory means there's no bottleneck there. Then it's just how many of these can they solder onto boards, and it's a single board from looking at the wired pictures. Like there should be no bottlenecks, and if they're really serious about beating Sony this go round, then they announce a subsidized super cheap price
So let's talk about
with
price.
2 years of live, and they jam it out, and there's 15 million of them in the channel by the end of the year.
I do think you'll see two-tiered pricing. I think you'll see like just take it out the door price for like whatever it'll be, $499.
Yeah, on and off
then,
contract.
it's just that it's moved
I think
to...
that the take out the door price will be higher than previous generations.
$700.
because they want to do self. They want to do.
The thing is,
subsidized
I'm actually
self-pricing.
thinking about. I don't know how I'm going to get mine yet, but given that.
You mean instead of exchanging money for goods or services?
No, I'm thinking about like which deal I would want to take. But
okay.
presumably, since you kind of we're all going to want Xbox Live, you may as well just get the subsidized
price,
one
yeah.
and take the 2-year contract or whatever.
If in the end you still come out ahead, you know, like if your live bill goes up to $20 a month because of that, that's a little harder to
yeah, I
swallow.
mean, I think all the
I would say
pricing is
that's
going to
open.
change.
That's all. That's also assuming that live service is the only thing they're going to use to subsidize this thing. I mean, we had heard some talk a couple months ago that they were out there talking to cable companies about subsidizing as part of a cable subscription. Which, so like, you know, imagine if you got this thing from Comcast.
I think
But that means
I think that's off the table.
because there's no
Yeah.
coaxial.
I'm not saying that actually came
Right.
to fruition. That may have all fallen through. But
I've got a deal for you. Would you buy the Xbox One? It's free. The hardware is free. Xbox Live, everything. The service is free for live. You never pay a nickel. But the way that they monetize it is you sign an agreement agreeing that via the Kinect sensor, you are part of a 24/7 live Truman Show channel that is available to all other users at all time. So you can go to a Truman Show channel
So it's
and
basically
pick any
like on
Xbox Live
live
user
for
and
life.
get a live feed into their living room at any given time, and you are one of those users.
2
Anyone
years?
can select the Shoemaker channel and see what's going on in your house.
I would never do that, but I bet a lot of people would.
Yeah, like we're in a
But like,
special
you can never
case.
like sit around in your pants, like scratching your
I know,
dick,
that's the
like
thing.
things that you like to do.
Well, you can. You just have to not care.
You could actually monetize that. You could be like
Yeah.
a power, one of those YouTube users
For
that monetize-
$500, if I get $500 on this PayPal account right now, I drop the.
You'd be
piece of cardboard.
constantly in like a heightened state of awareness, right? Like that thing's really broadcasting you all the time.
I think my wife would probably veto that one.
But it's free.
She's She's comfortable with spending money to not be broadcast live over the internet.
Yeah, I don't think it would go down a storm in my house either. But it'd be an interesting, as a social experiment, it'd be interesting to see how many people would sign up. For that.
Realistically, like I think $200 subsidized is probably where they're going to start.
I think unlike
that would
past
sell a lot of
generations,
consoles.
Yeah.
they don't want to take a loss on the hardware.
Well, here's the thing. We'll know how much. We'll know what their yield on the machines is when we see what the pricing is.
That means launch day is going to be even worse. It's going to be like buying a cell phone, right? You're going to have to pass a credit check, sign up for a 2-year plan. Like,
well, unless you're already on the live.
It's going to be ugly.
Yeah, I mean, it may be that they charge you live up front.
I'm just going to try and get mine online, get it shipped, do it all.
Yeah,
that's just like buying a cell phone. I mean, if you're doing it on a plan
Hope
base.
FedEx shows up. I mean,
10 minutes.
Does anybody think that there's not going to be a subsidized plan with this?
I think
they're.
I'm almost certain there will be
all big
almost certain
guaranteed.
there will be a subsidized.
I mean, that pilot program they ran on the 360 at Microsoft stores was like
Right.
mind-bogglingly successful.
Yeah.
Even though you ended up paying way more in the
That
long
was
run.
$999.
$99.
This is how you get the overrun that window up to paying for monthly services.
The American buying public loves to defer their costs, even if they screw
We're
themselves
idiots
up.
as a
I mean,
culture.
the cell phone model is very, very well established.
Yeah.
I'll happily pay. Well, the thing is, though, I'm going to pay for live. The question is, are they going to have 2 tiers of live? Is there
Yeah.
going to be a subsidized console live and then the normal $5 a month or whatever it is, $6 a month?
what is live a year now?
It's $60 a year.
Yeah, but that's that's if you buy it with a credit card from them. You
can
can
get
get
it
cards
cheaper.
for
Yeah.
$35, $40.
Yeah.
Double that price is what I think live
Wow.
will be.
Wow.
$10 a month.
20
They're not
bucks.
providing data.
I do think the price will go up.
Oh man.
I'm surprised that there was no
The offering needs to improve.
There was no cellular built into this.
I was kind of so that
Why no
I
cellular?
don't think you've even brought this up because you guys saw the story. So the always online DRM stuff is out the window.
Yes.
Which created such a horrible PR fiasco for them.
Well-
but there is a 24-hour check-in.
Well, someone said 24-hour, and then PR said we are not confirming at this time.
Okay.
So 24-hour is what someone who works at Microsoft has said, but I think
That's the kind of thing they can change easily
yeah,
at
sure.
the last minute.
Yeah, but
sure.
again, this is the sort of thing that you need to wait and see.
But that's a
then-
horribly restrictive.
Steam does a 2-week one, right?
Is that what it is?
Your cable box does it. Your cable box checks in like 3 o'clock in the morning and checks for firmware updates and stuff.
Yeah, but
You're never
that's
going to
different
take your
than-
you're never going to take your cable box elsewhere, and the cable, with few exceptions, is never going to be down. You know.
most people don't take their Xboxes elsewhere.
Well, Jeff made the point of like you go to Evo and you want to play a bunch of fighting games with people in a hotel room, but hotel internet is so bad you can't get the Xbox on there. Like suddenly you can't play.
This
the
is
Xbox.
why I was surprised there was no cellular, because then they could bundle that into
Exactly.
live,
Like, so-
and then also
like
get
kinda
away with
like a Vita
like,
style.
or actually more like the like Kindle style, like just
Oh, like a
whisper-
low priority.
Yeah, because how much data does it need to send just to like authenticate?
So just to kind of wrap up real quick, like I'm curious, what was the mood like just around the giant bomb brain trust after all this? Like Jeff and you and Patrick and Ryan, what was everybody thinking? What was the takeaway?
Not like overwhelmingly positive or blown away, but again, at least for me, it's more of a wait and see. It's like, great, there's a bunch of nice to have features that I personally am not going to use, but I guess it's cool that they're there. But show me the games line.
I think E3, the real story will be told.
I think Ryan summed it up pretty well on the podcast when he said that they are literally just staying the course. Like they are doing exactly what the 360 has been doing for the last 5 years, just better. You know?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, 360
which
has
is
been very successful
bold
for them.
because there's a lot of movement away from high-end consoles and
Yeah.
for gaming. I mean, more people are playing games, period.
Right.
But then you also have no Xbox indie games.
And the same is true of PS3, right? I mean, PS4 is just a super PS3. I mean,
Well,
they haven't really, they're not changing the paradigm.
They're saying it's going to be easier to build games
That's the
for,
thing.
and then they trotted out a whole shitload of indie games.
But the basic experience of sitting in front of your big TV with your controller is basically
sure.
it's the same as it ever
yeah,
was.
Sure.
Okay.
But Microsoft's going harder for the media and entertainment angle,
Right.
where Sony is just building the
Well,
fastest.
we don't know for sure. Sony may have done it backwards, right? The other way around. They kind of went games first, and they may show the media stuff later.
For now, though, it seems like the emphasis is we built the fastest gaming machine we could and made it really easy to make games for.
The media and services angle is something that Microsoft has a huge advantage over Sony for because they have the infrastructure and they build OSs as a big part of their business.
And just as kind of like a final thought on this, because I was at IGN the other day and I was talking to Greg Miller and a couple of other guys about this. Like, is Wii U, is Nintendo is it over? Like, every generation people say, Nintendo's doomed, but I'm kind of feeling like maybe it does not look good for the Wii U in the coming years, does it?
I don't know if you can ever bet against Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean,
It's hard to say.
But the Wii U is not in good shape.
No,
right
it's
now.
not right now.
no, I mean more games.
I mean, they'll
Some games, more any games would be more.
they'll be at E3. They've already said like the new Mario game will be there.
They will be.
Oh,
E3?
okay.
Yeah,
I think
they're not
they-
doing a press conference.
I think they flat out said, and it's the the Mario Galaxy team. It's like the core.
Oh, that's what we want, core
Exactly,
Mario, yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
the core. Like that alone will make. another
I think the story of the
10
Wii U
million
for me
people
will be
go
the
buy it.
story of every other Nintendo console I've ever owned, which is at the end of the day, it ends up being worth it for the half dozen really great Nintendo
That's
games they make.
exactly what it'll be.
But from a business standpoint, why can't they just make more money selling those games on other consoles? I know it's
more-
against their core philosophy
Yeah.
and everything they stand for.
More control.
Just keep
Yeah,
wishing.
they want to control the experience top to bottom like Apple.
Did Jeff say anything about how loud it was? Was he able to see a unit running or be in a position to hear it?
I don't even know that there were like consoles
real
in
consoles.
the
And whatever
running
was there wouldn't have been final hardware anyway. This is
well-
again, that's the kind of stuff you can't know until you actually take it out of the box. That
But I mean,
bring it home.
the Anand did that really extensive kind of
The technical
thermal
breakdown,
and
yeah.
power breakdown, and said that it should be significantly quieter than the PS4
Yeah,
based on what's in there.
And the core, like you should be able to turn off CPU. Everything in that machine can be turned off independently of everything else.
He said
pretty
that the
much.
power gating was such that it could get down to like 20 watts at idle. Like the idea is if you're going to leave this thing on all the time as your media cable device,
Yeah.
like you might leave it on 24 hours a day, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And for it to be that, it can't be a leaf blower, right? It's got to be as quiet as a
Well,
cable box.
half the physical box is
cooler.
heatsink
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah, it's a big box.
And if you look at the top, like half of it is a giant vent.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's why it's the diagonal vent design and not the lattice.
No
design.
no vertical Xbox Ones. It looks like.
Yeah.
I got 5 minutes.
Let me play some music and we'll do what we've been testing, and I'll let you talk about Blinky because I want to give you some shit.
Okay.
Gary, you've been testing something.
I've been testing many things, but you want to talk about Blinky in particular?
Well, that's what I had on the list. But if you,
I
have
don't know why you want to
something
give me
else
shit
you'd rather
about
talk
it. It's fun. It's a $5 app on the App Store, and basically it's a vintage throwback word processor.
The Mac App Store, right?
Yeah, on the Mac App Store, and it makes your Mac. It's a simple text editor, but it has a variety of old school fonts. Like it basically turns your computer into in Matthew Broderick's computer from War Games.
I saw you
and you can write
post some
text
pictures of
documents.
that.
Yeah, it's great.
Braga,
I'm a
you
sucker for that kind of retro.
Why are you going to give him shit?
Because he doesn't like skeuomorphism.
Well, because you don't like skeuomorphism.
That's a fun one.
Okay. I'm not
Some
going to give you shit about it.
skeuomorphism isn't in itself a good or a bad thing.
This is
there are
voluntary
good and bad
skeuomorphism, I
applications
guess,
of it.
at least.
Yeah, I choose to now write some of my documents in that old styled format, and it's fun. I like it.
And I guess because if Apple replaced TextEdit with Blinky, you would be upset.
And I got to say, it's very well done. Like, I mean, it has the curvature of the screen. It has the degauss. I mean, the phosphorus glow. Like, it really does make it feel like an
Does
old
it make
school
like
monitor.
clicky keyboard noises when you type?
It has like 8 different clicky keyboard noises.
Oh my
you
god.
can choose from.
Okay. So I'm in. I'm back.
I think you
I'm
should.
back.
I think you should.
I
try
take
it
it
out.
back. I apologize
think you
unreservedly.
should try it out. You might enjoy it.
What else have you been testing, Gary, in the last few minutes?
I went to the Virgin Galactic spaceport in New Mexico. That was I didn't really test very much, but I got to hang out at like a real live space station, I guess you would call it.
Well, spaceport.
Yeah, it's cool. It's out in the middle of the New Mexico desert.
Did you get to see White Knight 1 or 2?
No, I didn't see any ships. I just saw like the big hangar and like the astronaut lid, some of the astronaut facilities.
How long did it take to get out there?
Man, a long time. It's out way out in the middle of the desert near Truth or Consequences, New Mexico.
Really, that's the name of the town?
Yeah.
That's a fantastic name.
Yeah, it's a cool name. And first time we took an SUV out there, we burst a tire because the gravel on the road is so thick. And so we had to take a helicopter back, which is cool.
Well, that was okay.
I got to hang out with real live astronauts.
Okay.
Former NASA astronauts who now work for SpaceX.
Okay.
It was cool. It was a really fun experience.
Did you like load up the like spaghetti western playlist on your iPhone as you were like driving out through the desert?
No,
or
we
anything,
we didn't do anything like that. But
Okay.
it's very like, yeah, you're way out.
This
there.
was for press for After Earth.
For
I
After Earth,
assume.
they did the press junket, where they invite all the press to come, and when you see like those interviews on Access Hollywood,
Yeah.
where like Will Smith or Tom Cruise or whatever sitting there with like the poster behind him doing like a kind of like a puffy interview.
Yeah.
That's how they generate.
What
those.
was the most challenging part of working in Costa Rica?
And Will sits there. I watched him do it. He sits there for like 6 hours and like just rolls interviews back to back.
And there's a publicist that's off camera because they have like fixed cameras. They give the feed to the journalists afterwards.
Yeah.
This is that process that Mila Kunis like famously
Yes.
subverted a few months
Yes,
ago.
yeah. Whenever you see one of these, sometimes they go viral. But it was fun. It was good to hang out. I've got lots of fun astronaut stories for you next time. I've got to jump in
Yeah.
in a couple of minutes. But After Earth next Friday comes.
So you're just here to promote your movie. I see how it is.
Yeah, which is,
So
which
what
is
was it
why I'm
like-
spending a massive 30 seconds at the end of this 90-minute podcast to do it.
What was it like working with Will Smith? And
Yeah, I've got a clip. What are we going to see? I don't know. What's this clip?
So this was originally Will and Jaden's idea, but then you came and kind of fleshed it out.
It was
right?
Will's idea, and they hired me, and I wrote the movie, and that's it. You should go see it. It's good.
Excellent.
I think it's good. I literally only saw the finished film for the first time last week, and I think it's pretty good.
Excellent. Anything else you've been testing besides space and retro?
I feel like
text
there are
editor?
other things, but I haven't had a chance. Right now, I'm kind of blanking on them. Blinky, I guess you should check out Blinky. I think you'd really like it.
$3, $4.
Yeah, the new Xfinity X1 cable box. We should talk about that next
I
time.
think
have some more time.
next time you're here, we should actually talk about that at length because it's pretty
And
cool.
watching a lot of Downton. I love Downton. Man, Mr. Bates is my favorite character.
I've watched
You came to this late, or
Are you into it?
well, yeah, but it hasn't been on in a while.
Oh no, we came
back
to it.
now.
We came to it like we bought it on
Wait,
iTunes.
what do you mean it's
We've been
back
working our
Oh,
way
it popped
through.
up on TiVo the other day.
We're almost done now. We're almost caught up on the end of the third season.
Oh, okay.
Man, what a show! Like the first couple of seasons, like this is silly, but like
Yeah.
you get really sucked into
yeah.
it.
Well, it's about nothing. It's like Seinfeld.
It becomes more dramatic as it goes on.
It's very soapy. Or it
Yeah,
can be.
but it's fun.
But
It's
it's fun.
really
It's
compulsive.
fun. It's a fun
It's
soap
very
opera.
much compulsive viewing.
But I guess so. My thing about it, because we watched the whole thing, is it's basically like you'll have a 2-episode arc where nothing happens. It's just about there's a misunderstanding, and then something happens upstairs.
Yeah, lots of
something
people
happens
getting
downstairs.
very.
that's the life of the idle rich, right?
I
Yeah,
understand.
lots of people getting very upset about things they read in the newspaper, and it's just
So
awesome.
my
God, Bates.
Yes.
my Kickstarter idea is to do a Downton Abbey, but in modern times. So you rent a massive manor, have a whole bunch of servants come in, and you just do a documentary about what it's like to live like
I
the
believe
upstairs
they
people
actually
at
did
Downton
that
Abbey.
on PBS.
Yeah, I saw
Really?
it. I saw
Yeah.
it. The owners of that castle like took people on a tour.
Yeah,
I wanna say
they did like a Stanford prison experiment where they recreated like the class structure from
Yeah.
100 years ago, and it did not go well.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to run.
Okay,
But
thanks,
next time I
Gary.
come back, I want to talk about all this stuff in more detail.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with No Gary. Dun, 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 dun. I guess they play music.
Not an actual break.
Oh, we can take an actual break.
No,
if
we don't
one.
need to.
we don't need
Okay.
to break.
And we're back. Brad Shoemaker, have you been? Do you want to talk about more news before? Are we good? Are we good on that X-Bone?
I'm good.
We didn't talk about Wi-Fi Direct, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like that's at least initially going to be mostly for the controllers.
That's what I would have guessed. Yeah. And then if they like the things that the other crazy demos that we've seen over the years, like that projector that you put behind you
one
that
they showed at
projects
CES this year?
Yeah, like if that would be a Wi-Fi Direct type
Okay.
thing because you need a fair amount of bandwidth for that.
Some speculation it could help facilitate like smart glass stuff, like kind of
Yeah.
Smart glass-
companion tablet stuff. And
Its implementation has not been wonderful.
no, it's not good so
and
far.
they were really pushing it as like smart
Yeah,
glass
yeah.
is the way to do third screen.
So many
screen.
Microsoft initiatives just die on the vine. It seems like this could be another one of those. But like, were you guys aware of Wi-Fi Direct before this? I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, it's
What's the benefit of using that for stuff like controllers? Is there?
it's probably more bandwidth than what
Okay.
you get with Bluetooth.
Okay.
and cheaper than building your own IC and building your own protocol.
And can they still?
I don't know what battery life is like though.
Can they still make it proprietary in such a way that other people can't?
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yes, they can make
'Cause
the
they
way
were-
the
they were-
console talks to the controller
They were
proprietary.
very restrictive about the wireless technology in the 360. Very
Right,
Like
but that's
they-
because it
they-
was a custom chip.
Well, that's
and
what I
custom
mean. That's
protocol.
what I mean. I was surprised to see them move away from a fully enclosed standard for that.
My hunch is that the costs on that are such that it's not worth.
It just made sense.
Yeah, and looking at the number of people who are buying third-party PlayStation controllers, PlayStation used Bluetooth.
Right.
We used Bluetooth.
Yep.
There are no third-party PlayStation or Wii controllers that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So they just did it. They made it. They locked it down another way.
And I wonder if that's going to then allow you to use that new controller with PCs.
That it remains in. I would say don't throw out your Xbox 360 controller.
Yeah,
just yet.
is there a wired version at all, or was there a wired port?
They didn't
I didn't
say.
see USB ports on the front
There
of it.
are only 3 USB ports, and you're right. None of them are on the front. There's 2 on the back, which are
Yeah.
not very easily accessible, and then there's 1 on the side.
It's a bummer if you can't use that new controller PC.
I'm okay either way.
The current one is the button layouts are all the same, so you'll be fine with
You
the
can
old.
leave that plugged in, Gary. So what were we talking about before Gary killed the camera?
USB ports on the Xbox One.
No front USB ports.
Doesn't-
Not unsure that this new Xbox controller will be able to work with PC.
Yeah.
I freaked out at first when I saw no USB ports on the front, and I was like, where am I going to put my USB stick that has my profile and saves on it? And I was like, oh, right, that will all be in
the cloud.
the Azure colored cloud.
Or you can buy a $2 USB extension cable and run it from the back to the front.
Yeah.
Which seems
USB
like
3 extension cable.
yeah. I think that's it. I think that's the high points.
Pretty much, yeah.
End of this year,
I'm just, they said
buy,
later
you
this
buy
year.
both PS4 and Xbox.
Thanks, Tony.
I mean, if PS4 is unsubsidized and Xbox is subsidized, I could see people buying both.
I have set aside monies. I am.
But the thing is, you're not going to get rid of your 360. Zero backward compatibility.
Oh, we didn't talk about that at all.
Yeah.
Games and arcade games, which is weird. It makes sense because the architecture is completely different, but
Yeah, there was that rumor floating around a couple weeks ago that this would. So it's all but confirmed that there will be a $99 360 announced at E3.
oh really?
Yeah. So the SoC
Yes.
version of the 360.
That, like, people looked at engineers' LinkedIn profiles and stuff and saw that like a new like a system on a chip version of the 360 has been designed.
Yeah. So right now,
And Matrick made that comment like, we'll have news about the future of the Xbox 360 at E3.
So a small 360.
So like the idea is that it'll be like an Apple TV competitor.
well, but still with a
goodness.
disk drive. Theoretically,
Maybe like some of that's probably all speculation. Like
But-
one rumor had said it might be a diskless version.
just
but
for
right-
arcade,
and
download
most of the
full
retail
down-
games
yeah.
are on the marketplace at this point.
Yeah.
I'd be down for that.
So I mean, you could buy your $99 tiny 360 just as an archival thing.
That'd
but
be great.
the rumor was, since that SoC existed, that the new Xbox was also going to have that in there.
Yeah, but that's an expensive thing.
But
to put
it's
in.
probably too expensive, and it ended
That
up
would
not,
mean a second
so.
SKU having backward compatibility for 100
the
Well,
bucks
not
more.
necessarily. Oh yeah, but if they were going to charge more for it, yeah.
People are mostly worried about preserving their downloadable games on both of these systems.
Yeah, like if I look at the games that were my favorites on this generation, it's stuff like Bastion and Spelunky and like those downloadable. Of course, most of those are going to end up existing on Steam too, so I
Yeah.
kind of don't care as much.
Right.
But it sucks to have to buy all that stuff 3 times.
Sure.
also.
Or
Well, the
like a lot of people who never played PS2 games on the PS3. Like how many times do you actually do that?
Yeah.
You just save the old console, save the
That's true.
Dreamcast,
That's
and break
what
it
I
out
always
when
say.
you want
I
to play
mean,
Crazy Taxi.
absolutely. Like backwards compatibility is a non-starter for me. I mean, the big concern for people is that discs don't go away if you take care of them, but the servers, like the download servers, might
Yeah.
vanish at some point.
And there's no easy way to back that stuff up either.
You're
really.
right, but the thing people don't seem to understand, or that they need to understand, is that is a completely other issue from the backwards compatibility problem.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people I see a lot of people saying like, I don't care if the disc games work, I just want the downloadable stuff. But if you have one, you have the other, and if you don't have one, you don't. Like they're both
Right.
Pieces
You need
of
both
software.
pieces.
They're both pieces of software written for the same architecture. It doesn't matter how you got them, or that doesn't determine whether you can play them on the new system or not.
But discs are special. The code
Discs,
in them.
get ready for discs to not be special anymore, Norm.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Blu-ray.
just hang on to your old console.
Do you think that with this generation, with PS4 and Xbox One, that we're going to see a price increase in games? Or do you think 60 is still
Didn't
still
Activision
good
make
for
some
60
make
for
some
a while?
noise about wanting to, or EA or somebody about
There was
going to
in
70?
one of the calls. There was some.
Well, EA
hubbub.
got rid of Online Pass, so we're not going to see the
did.
multiplayer
But the-
DLC stuff.
in light of this, like kind of the new DRM solution for games, you can kind of see why.
Yeah, if the used copy fee is the price of the retail game, then
it's fine.
Then yeah, then they win.
And they can still sell DLC after that.
You said something a second ago that triggered something that I've now forgotten entirely. What were you talking about 2 seconds before? Online Pass, $70 games.
Work backwards here.
Backward compatibility, download servers.
Download servers,
Arcade.
360 SoC.
360 SoC.
Where are we going? with
There's
this?
room in this with this Jaguar stuff to further shrink this process and make it more efficient, smaller, and lighter because they're on a relatively large process size for this.
What's the process size?
I thought it was 40 nanometers, right? Isn't that what the man
that's
says?
massive.
Was it? I thought it
I'm
was
sorry.
28.
I'm sorry. 28.
Yeah, it's 28.
The current one is 40 nanometers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And Anand said the ESRAM and stuff in there, like that stuff will scale really well with the die shrinks.
Yeah, and it's right now it's multiple dies inside one package. There's an opportunity, of course, for them to make all one die in the future.
When you say die, like you put in like your Intel Core CPU, like the die is the thing on top.
No.
of it.
That's the heat shield.
That's the
heat spreader.
package.
That's the die.
So, the die is actually very tiny, right?
So when you take off that piece of metal on top
Right.
of a CPU, currently on most modern CPUs, there's one piece of silicon, one silicon chip that's been etched by whatever process they're using now.
like on a substrate.
In the old days, when dual core CPUs first came out, like Pentium Ds or Pentium 4Ds, it was actually two CPUs, two dies in one processor package that then connected across the system bus.
And sometimes you can see that if you look at the bottom of the CPU,
Right.
Like
Yeah.
between the pins,
There'll be a
two-
gap.
two separate
So my
gaps.
question about these APUs is like what is underneath the heat shield? Like there are two separate physical Jaguar dies.
My understanding is that and this is what Norm said and what Anand said, is that there are two separate dies underneath each CPU package for the PS4 and the Xbox One.
And does that mean there's also a separate discrete die for the GPU?
No.
'cause
Within each Jaguar is CPU, GPU.
Yeah, because each APU is a CPU GPU. So there's two of those
Okay.
in each of these,
So there's only two dies underneath that thing.
unless that ESRAM is a separate die.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which we don't know.
Gotcha.
That kind of would make sense because like the question about the ESRAM is how they're going to use it. Is it a cache for the larger system memory, which is the traditional thing to do? It could also be a high speed interconnect for the two Jaguar APUs to talk to each other.
You
Which
would
is
hope it-
ridiculous when you're talking about cache, because you're talking about typically 1 or 2 megs of cache.
Well,
for
Well, not anymore.
CPU.
I've actually talked to a couple of programmers, like they're not necessarily working on Xbox One games. This
Right.
is just speculation based on them looking at the specs. But and also Anand said basically the same thing that they told me, which was like, that 32 megabytes is big enough for the frame buffer. It's probably going to largely be used in graphics applications,
Right.
feeding the GPU stuff. They'd actually
Because on the 360, if those APUs have to go out to slow system memory to talk to each other,
Right. That's
like
a
that
huge
could be a
bottleneck,
huge problem for
Yeah.
the one compared to the PS4,
Right.
which has much faster system.
I mean,
memory.
there's no doubt the PS4 is a faster machine, but what I had been told was that if you use that ESRAM
Yeah.
Intelligently, and who knows if Microsoft's going to facilitate this through their dev tools or if you'll have to
Yeah.
code for it by hand or whatever, but that will, it's not going to completely close the gap, but it will at least bring them closer to parity.
High speed cache has long been used as a way to make parity.
Right. And Anand said
with
the
faster memory.
same thing, yeah.
But the big question is how many units can they ship, and if they come out to a huge lead because they're doing a subsidized price this holiday, then it's not going to, like you said, it's not going to
Yeah,
matter.
specs don't mean
because
jack shit if they target the mainstream with better features, or not even better, but just features that more people want.
So the same rules apply.
And they get it out there cheaper. Yeah, it's the same thing.
You buy the
every
console that
generation.
has the first party games you want.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally.
Easy enough.
$200, $10 a month. It's a lot you can sell. this holiday
That's
season.
man, I don't know. That sounds.
I think it has to be $20 a month.
that sounds a little generous to me.
$20 a month. Wow.
Yeah, half a cell phone bill.
Crazy.
200 and no, there's no way. I don't think so. Because what is that? That's only $440 over the life of the console. No, I don't think that.
Hey, Brad, you've got to blast off here in a minute too, unfortunately. But do you want to talk about space food while we're here?
Do you want to talk about space stuff after Brad leaves, or
Brad, do you have interest in space?
We got
space
we got
food?
Maker Faire to talk about. We had lots of shit to
we
talk
got a lot of
about.
stuff to talk about. We'll let you be the judge. Maker Faire.
I'd rather talk about space food than Maker Faire.
Okay, space food it is.
What you got against makers?
Nothing. I'm
Yeah,
just,
why do you hate the future, man? It's the future of American
I don't.
manufacturing, Brad.
I don't.
The fuck is wrong
I
with
want
you?
to know about space-based manufacturing.
It's happening.
Yeah.
We ate a lot of space food
Yeah.
when we went to Houston a few weeks ago.
How was it?
Better than I expected.
Yes, I think that's accurate.
Like I was
What are we
Expectations were not
talking
very
here?
high.
Ice cream or
No.
No astronaut ice cream.
dehydrated lasagna?
So they put out when we went down for the two videos that we did with Dave Chang, the video we did with Dave Chang, Tracy Desjardins, and Chris Hadfield. They the people at the Space Food Systems Lab set out a massive spread of food that the chefs had requested to taste, and it was basically all there. We could taste it either in its natural form, like unrehydrated as freeze dried stuff, or in these packs, like therm stabilized packs, like MREs, kind of.
Okay.
And of course, modern chefs, they love freeze dried stuff.
Freeze dried stuff is super hot right now.
Concentrated flavors.
Really?
And
Yeah.
Wow.
So when we went to Modernist last year, they have a freeze dryer in there that they were just basically said they're putting whatever they had in there. They would freeze dry it and see what it tasted like and go from there. It concentrates flavors. Dave Chang said he takes freeze dried strawberries and uses them to make strawberry ice cream because it's so much more potent strawberry flavor than you get with just a
gotta
normal wet
love
strawberry.
ramen. Straight up freeze dried ramen.
Wait,
dehydrated ramen.
He's not the guy on Mind of a Chef, is he?
He is.
He
the
was
guy
on Mind of a
Oh,
Chef.
hey, you know that guy?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
fun trip. He's
a
he's
great
the
show.
Momofuku. It was a great show.
Oh yeah, that show's awesome. Holy crap,
Holy crap!
man. Anyway,
So
We took him to the worst barbecue place,
yeah, it was a
In
real.
Texas.
We took him to a terrible barbecue.
and we
So
drove 40 minutes to get there.
how do you find? How could you possibly find terrible
I
barbecue?
trusted
in Texas?
Yelp. So the thing that Yelp
I didn't know that
needs-
existed.
This is the thing that this taught me the lesson. What Yelp needs is a filter that lets people say whether they want to eat by portions, like whether they rate by portion size or by flavor.
Okay.
And we accidentally went to a portion size place.
See,
It was not like the sauce was okay.
It was embarrassing.
he was not happy.
No,
No, he put on a great
he's
face.
super chill.
He rolled with it.
Yeah.
He was super
cool dude.
Well, his whole thing is he makes fancy ramen. So
Yeah.
he like spent time in Japan eating at all the bad ramen places and the good ramen
yeah,
places,
yeah.
and so he's a man of the people. The peach cobbler was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you guys opt for the reconstituted, rehydrated?
So we
version,
had some
or-
rehydrated stuff, some freeze-dried stuff, some the canned stuff that was just thermal stabilized.
Yeah.
That's actually an MRE.
So well, it is packaged the same as an MRE. It's all custom food for MREs because one of the things we learned is that the salt and fat and caloric content of MREs is way off what you need in space. Like they have to be really careful about eating too much salt because that contributes to muscle and bone loss, and also like vision problems that persist beyond the space flight. So if you're there for 6 months and you eat too high salt a diet, then you can have vision loss that doesn't come back when you come back to gravity.
Wow.
So then the only way you can find out that's going to happen is to go up there and stay, and they kind of monitor you while you're there. And if it seems like you're starting to experience symptoms, then they cut your sodium intake
So
dramatically.
eating in space very bland.
No. They use a lot of hot sauce.
Oh, okay.
A lot of the stuff was very saucy, both as a to help keep it together, like to make it easier to eat. Because one of the things that we didn't realize, and we learned this watching Chris Hadfield eat asparagus in space, is that like eating things that aren't glued together with some sort of sauce is real hard because it's going to bounce all over the place. Mixing stuff in space is very challenging, so we weren't able to mix like there's no they don't have bowls obviously because bowls are
Useless.
valueless.
Yeah.
But they stir stuff up. We tasted a ton of food, and with very wildly varying results.
What was the best? What were the best and worst? Top two and worst. two.
The freeze dried grits are awesome. So they're like rice cakes that taste like corn.
Okay.
So they
Cheese
taste
grits or the butter
hominy.
grits?
grits are ground up hominy.
Yeah.
I liked the freeze dried grits a lot. It wasn't the best
butter
thing.
grits?
The butter grits, not the cheesy
I can see
grits.
that being all right.
The strawberries, of course, are always good.
So how is it dispensed? I mean, like you said, you can't just open a package because it would just go flying.
Well, no, you can open a package, but so the thermal stabilized MRE style ones are long packages, kind of like in a.
It's like a pouch about 5 inches
So are you
by
going
3
to kind of
inches.
cut one end
So you
open
could
and
cut
sort
a
of
corner.
squeeze it out?
You could cut the small end and
Yeah.
use a long spoon, or you can cut the long end and use a short spoon.
Or use a long spoon, as he did.
Yeah.
And for these, is this all stuff that would be in use on the ISS or for
so
shorter missions?
No, this is all. So all the ISS food has to be stable at room temperature.
Okay.
There's no refrigeration on the space
Right.
station to speak of.
I wonder. What's the climate control like though?
70 degrees,
Really?
shirt sleeves.
No air conditioning.
Sure, but if it's 70 all the time, you're fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
I wonder. I don't know if they told you. When they send people up there, do they travel with the entirety of the food they'll need for their stay, or do they get like shipments?
No, so
supply.
so they eat. They called it pantry style, and what happens is that several times a year there are supply missions that come up either in like Dragon X capsules, which are new. The ESA has a capsule. The Russians send
Yeah, I'm
progress
sure they
missions.
contract out a lot, right?
And everybody sends their food up and their supplies up in a different way. And those missions bring food, clothes, water. All the stuff that they need to survive, plus science stuff as well, obviously.
The different countries have like different pantries. Like, does the Russian pantry
Yeah.
get
Yes.
raided by the Americans or something?
So the Russians have their own food supply. The Americans have their own food supply. It seems like the ESA in Japan, when they send astronauts up, also send food with them.
JAXA, isn't it?
JAXA is the Japanese Space Agency.
And then the astronauts, in addition to the stuff that NASA makes for them, they get a personal supply of food that they can have processed.
It's like 8 kilos.
Because I was going to ask, like, they must have a very regimented system for how much you can eat every day, right? It's like
It's not monitored like perfectly calorically, but
Okay.
you know it.
Basically, so each of the pantry boxes has a selection of everything that's available. And they say, okay, it's Friday. You can open up a new pantry box. And this is going to last until such and such a day.
Okay.
So as long as they don't use that up too fast or too slow, then everything's cool.
So they just need to kind of monitor their own intake.
They're responsible for their own stuff most of the time.
To be fair, I mean, you've never seen a fat astronaut, right? Like
You're working out 2.5
3 hours
hours.
a day.
not only that, but if you have the drive to become an astronaut and get up there, you probably have the
Yeah.
self-discipline to not overeat. So.
Yeah. Well, and you're also naturally losing bone and muscle
sure,
mass. So yeah, the food was much better than I expected. Like the freeze dried stuff was all pretty good, especially the vegetables were like the texture was always a little rough.
Yeah.
But the flavor and stuff was good. From the messages we've gotten from Chris, it seems like the thing that they miss after being up there for 6 months is fresh fruit and vegetables.
Yeah, I can see
Because
that.
like you don't get crisp stuff. It's all very chewy and
Mushy and-
yeah, lots of hot sauce.
Barbecue brisket,
Yeah.
just as good as, if not better than, that Austin brisket.
It was probably better than what we had at the Bad Barbecue place.
Wow.
Let's see, what else did we have? We had the drinks were interesting. All the drinks come in like these big Capri Sun pouches.
Not full.
No.
Powder inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they add water using the same thing they use to rehydrate the freeze dried food.
Room temperature water. Ambient temperature.
Yeah, coffee. The coffee was freeze dried Kona coffee. I can't remember the name of the brand, but we actually found it out afterwards. And you can buy it on the internet. It was much better than what I expect from freeze dried coffee.
It's just something you would mix with hot water.
They add hot water. But the neat thing is, how do you drink your coffee, Brad? Like black, sugar,
black,
white,
nothing.
Okay,
Just
so
straight black.
So you're simple.
Yeah.
But if you drink cream and sugar, then they have to premix that on Earth, and it gets shipped up months in advance of your
They have
arrival.
like 4 different types of coffee,
Weird.
4 different types of tea.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
So if you want cream and sugar in your coffee, you have to specify that way in advance.
Oh, wow.
And the food has to last for up to 12 or 18 months. So it can take 9 months to get there sometimes, depending on where it's being shipped up.
Wow.
But then once you're on station, the Russians and the Americans kind of trade food back and forth. So
And there's leftover food in the personal pantries of previous astronauts.
yeah.
So you can leave your maple syrup.
I'm sure they're perfectly happy to leave it behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's not much room in those Soyuz capsules, it seems like.
But also, I'm sure they're totally sick of it
Yeah.
eventually.
Your personal food probably is not the most exciting thing. Dave Chang made some shrimp and grits, cheesy shrimp and grits with the, and Tracy made a space burrito. And the space burrito was pretty rad.
Yeah.
Space burrito is a recipe that was used multiple times
Huh.
on the space station after that video.
Oh, really? Where'd you find that out?
Chris Hadfield said that he shared it with other astronauts and they all
kidding.
enjoyed it as well.
No kidding.
Awesome.
Wow.
Part of their menu
That's
now.
part of
their-
the repertoire.
What's their bandwidth like up there?
It's good DSL most of the time.
Really?
Pretty good actually.
Yeah.
Latency is not good, but
Yeah. The
sheer-
throughput's
yeah,
decent.
Yeah.
There's it depends on the coverage area, like where the station's over at any given time.
Yeah.
There's when we were there, in a couple weeks after Joey and Norm are back from a trip that they're getting ready to do, we'll have a video that we recorded in Mission Control. And while we were there, it went from being like 4 high def video feeds to nothing. Because they passed from the high bandwidth area into the low bandwidth area, basically.
I think they can do like 6 SD feeds or 1 or 2 high def
So
feeds.
you could potentially buffer a YouTube video up there?
Well, they can Skype from.
Skype.
They can
Okay.
Skype with family members.
Okay.
I think they use it more for like they're not watching quick.
They don't
Links.
exactly
Sorry,
have
dude.
open access to the internet up there.
No.
Okay.
No.
The coolest
they do
thing-
have open access, but I think they use it probably pretty responsibly.
judiciously,
Would be my
yeah.
guess.
Yeah. I mean, the feeds are running nonstop, the video feeds.
Yeah.
So while we're in mission control, there was one dude with several monitors and laptops with all the feeds, and then astronauts, not doing PR things, actually working and communicating with mission control.
It was really neat.
Wow, that's really cool.
We talked about it a lot on this week's episode. It's still entitled, so you can go there and find out more if you're interested in some of the other stuff we've done. Some of that stuff is on hold just because we had production pipeline issues, and it'll be up in, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks at this point, probably.
After
I don't
E3.
know. Yeah, after E3.
Yeah,
sometime.
I'm looking forward to that.
But yeah, that was NASA.
Awesome.
Worth every penny
Yeah,
of my taxes.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I mean,
And way more.
yeah.
I mean,
Just
let's not get into the joke of NASA funding.
so after going to NASA, I downloaded Kerbal Space Program which I bought ages and ages ago and played with a little bit when it was still really rough. Do you know what Kerbal is? But it really gives you a real appreciation for the level of complexity of getting something just even to orbit.
Sure.
Much less building a space station in orbit over a 10-year period and keeping everybody alive and working and all that. So you should all play Kerbal, is what I'm trying to say. It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty ridiculous.
You know, I initially thought it was pretty ridiculous, and then I started reading forums and stuff, and like a lot of
you can play it as a straight simulator and take it super seriously, but I think you can also have a lot of fun being
you can be
ridiculous in
super
it.
silly, yeah. I like to get the spacecraft spinning and then send my Kerbals on an EVA and see how far I can get them to go.
Poor Kerbal.
It's a little mean.
It's the new Lemmings.
It is kind of the new Lemmings. Anything you've been testing, Brad, you want to talk about?
Not really tech wise. I've been testing a tragic amount of Dota 2 recently. Tragic.
You know,
Profound effect on my personal life.
I thought you had problems when back in the StarCraft
dude,
days.
this
Like
is
we
way-
thought about
way
having a
worse than
Norman
StarCraft.
Brad intervention.
Ooh.
But maybe it's time to, take a break, walk away.
I'm doing better after the first month. I'm
Okay.
kind of settling into a rhythm now.
Are you really enjoying it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my one experience with what wasn't even called a MOBA back then, I guess, but I played Demigod for a while. We played Demigod for a while,
Yeah.
and that it always left me feeling profoundly bad at the end of matches, even when we won. Like I never had.
No, you feel awesome when you win.
Yeah. Yeah. Winning is pretty great.
You feel awesome when you really humiliate someone. At least, like for me,
Actually, I like the nail biters best. The ones that really come down to the wire and that you
so
really just have to
brutal.
fight to pull out.
I guess the ones I didn't like were the ones where you would have like. You'd think it was close, and then it would open up really wide, and then it was just like 45 minutes of wrapping up.
Yeah.
That sucked. Somebody made an early mistake, maybe.
How expansive is Dota? Like, do you feel like you have a grasp on some of it, all of it, none of it?
You're what, a month in now?
Yeah. A month in. I've got trying to think how many matches I would have played in that month. Let's say like 80 to 100.
Okay.
Like I've got a lot more than that on my profile from just kind of like dabbling with it over the past 2 years and stuff. But my game sense, like my basic sort of like feel for who should be where and doing what at any given time is finally starting to kind of cohere.
So you look at the other team and you're like, oh, he has this character, this character, this
Not
character.
that so much. I'm not really there yet, but it's more just like the flow of the action on the map and looking at like which, it's based on the 3 lanes and kind of like looking at the state of each lane and figuring out like where the kind of hot spots are, where the trouble spots are, what they might be likely to do next. Like I'm finally getting a grasp of that stuff.
Okay.
The thing that just takes months and months of time is just learning all those characters.
Because there's hundreds.
Oh, there's 100. A little over 100 right now.
Okay.
And they're still adding more very slowly. But it's not just knowing what each guy does as you're playing them. It's knowing what the guys that the other team is playing can do to you.
Yeah.
And how to counter that and how to work with the other guys on your team. It's like it's endless. It takes forever to learn that stuff. And I've only played, I bet, still way less than half of the heroes.
Do you play pub games yet?
A little bit here and there. Okay. I've mostly been playing with my friends who are way better than me, which I think is making me learn a lot faster.
Do they yell at you not to feed?
No, they're
they're
really cool about it.
Okay.
For the most part, they've been really forgiving about stuff like that.
Okay.
But they actually, I had far and away my best game ever last night, and they were like very complimentary of like, wow, you're actually
you're not an anchor anymore.
demonstrably getting better at this game.
That's good.
And every time I go back to just a pub game, my ranking as a solo is still so low. I'm getting like kind of League of Legends refugees and people that have no idea what they're doing.
Oh boy.
So like at this point, I've played with enough skilled people that I'm like, I feel like a tier above that.
So is it a game you play 1v1 or is it can
No, it is purely 5-on-5.
Okay.
Like, there's no other way to play it.
So when you go
Except
into
there
a
are bots.
pub game just by yourself, then you will be
You will be
strangers.
matched. You will be matched with 4
Okay.
potentially not very nice people.
Yeah. Horrible things.
Or they could be cool. Like there are some cool people out there, and they have a really smart and robust kind of commendation system and rating system for reporting people who are assholes and like bumping up people who are really cool.
This is all the stuff that they were beta testing in TF2 over the last 2 years.
Yeah, like
right?
just about every like sort of peripheral feature of this game, from like the moderation to the kind of free to play economy stuff, is all straight out of TF2, like all of it. So you'd be very familiar with all that stuff.
So if somebody wanted to get into games and hasn't played any Dota, would you recommend this, or would you say that this is a bad idea?
I think it's definitely the least accessible of any of those style of games.
Okay.
Like you'd probably be a lot better served playing League of Legends or something first.
But this is totally free, right?
This is so the one thing this has going for it that none of the others do is that the second you download this, you have every gameplay relevant thing that you'll ever need to play it.
Yeah.
All the stuff they sell is purely cosmetic. So
every character is available.
every character, everything straight like, and I'm sure they're making money hand over fist just on. I mean, I've spent probably $70 on it
on hats.
on hats.
What's your best hat? Are the hats character specific?
Most of them, yeah. But there's also stuff like there's
so evil.
Like there's the courier character that ferries items out of your base to players.
like your little
there are
buddy.
Tons of courier like animals and characters that you can buy. They do like HUD, like you buy skins.
Yeah.
That will drop or you can buy. Announcer packs, like
the Bastion announcer,
Like
I heard.
the Bastion announcer is fantastic. Like there's a ton of personality in this stuff. It's really fun. A lot of fun.
Dark places, Brad. We're worried about you, man.
I've pulled myself out of the hole a little bit.
I heard that at one point you got in and started playing at like 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday and went for 10 hours.
It wasn't quite that early, but yeah, it was definitely like a sit down with morning coffee and then not get up until it's almost dinner time kind of thing.
Don't do that, man. That's bad for you.
It is bad.
You got to go see sun sometimes.
I've scaled it back a little bit.
You're out of the allergy
I'm doing
season.
better. I'm doing better.
Speaking of things Valve was doing,
Oh, you want to talk about the Cast AR thing?
talk about the cast.
We saw Cast AR at Maker Faire.
The what?
Have you heard about this?
So, remember a few years ago when Valve hired Mike Abrash and Jerry Ellsworth and a bunch of people to build augmented reality stuff?
Like wearable computing and stuff?
Pretty much, yeah. And then they fired them all earlier this
laid
year.
off
Laid
the-
off, whatever.
Abrash is still there.
Abrash
is
still there. About 25 people.
You don't
from
fire that guy.
team.
No,
yeah, he was
he
a
fires you.
get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
for
a
Valve.
name.
So their hardware lab, they still have a hardware lab. They just are not pursuing certain types of AR. I think partially because
I think they're not pursuing AR at all.
VR. I mean,
feel like
Abrash is super interested in AR, but VR is
has immediate commercial
exactly
opportunities.
as demonstrated by Oculus Rift and interest there. So Technical Illusions is the company that spun off from that stuff, and it's Jerry Ellsworth and Rick Johnson.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And they brought their prototypes to Maker Faire,
So they were
which is incredible. Like half a dozen glasses that they made by hand, 40 man hours each.
at least
those,
is
at
what she
least.
said.
Wow.
And they let kids at Maker Faire try them and play them, and just as a place to show it off.
So
What does it do?
we should talk about the 40. The 40 man hours are a lot of them were under microscopes, like doing super fine soldering and stuff like that. When she handed me the first prototype, I think I was one of the first people in the booth on the first day of Maker Faire, and she was like, these took a long time to make. Be careful.
Yeah, when people were putting them back on the table, they were like putting them away from the edge of the table because you didn't want them to fall on the ground.
Yeah, they were the most prototypey thing I've seen in a long time. But so the effect was really cool. You put the glasses on, and instead of like a virtual reality situation where you fill your entire field of vision with something that's rendered, this when you look at a screen, and the screen it's made of. The closest analog I can think to the material is like a license plate. You know how when you shine a flashlight at a license plate, no matter where you're shining it from, it reflects back at you.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of effect. So when you look at the screen, there's two projectors on above either eye, and they project each eye's image onto the screen.
The reflective surface.
Onto the reflective surface. So what you see is instead of like when you do the AR stuff with a 3DS or something like that, and it kind of like you have to look through the screen, this just fills your whole field of vision with whatever the augmented reality thing is. And they had some what I would say were pretty rudimentary tech demos, although the Maze one was pretty robust. Let you interact with virtual stuff in the real world. Wow. So like they had a Jenga game that you use this wand to whack the bricks, and the bricks fell off and dropped down into a hole.
Were the bricks hanging in space, or is it able to like identify a table surface?
It was able to identify the table surface,
and you don't need like tracking points.
There
on
are
the
tracking
table?
points.
Oh, you do.
So there were two tracking points on the demos that we played, and these are just IR trackers because there's a camera in the center of the glasses. So it's a combination of projection technology, like stereoscopic projection. So one projection for each eye. That's the big innovation.
Yeah.
Which means you're not looking at a 24-inch screen or a 3DS screen, and also pretty low latency head tracking using IR. And 3-point IR was the most basic you can get for spatial tracking, but you can imagine.
I think they were using 5 point.
many more points in the future.
So the way they denote the surface is that there were a couple of IR LEDs in a specific pattern that pulsed in a specific way, that essentially serve the same purpose as those weird cards that come with AR games
for the 3DS.
For
or
the
something.
3DS.
So this is not something you could just take anywhere and have it just work automatically.
Well, you need the special reflective surface, and that the AR or the IR stuff is theoretically built into that, so you can like roll that up, have a scroll.
Okay.
Throw
Right.
your scroll down on a table, and then see a map of the
Or
game world.
see your D&D dungeon.
Like imagine that your scroll is your game map, and you roll that up, and everyone sees, because you can have different people looking at the same time. It all tracks as long as you're tethered to your computer, and you could see
or a phone, she said, was the goal.
a 3D environment and move around it,
Wow.
and then interact with it.
So that Norm and I were seeing the same. So one of the games was a zombie maze game, and basically in that we were both looking at the same game world, but both from our own perspectives, even we were standing next to each other. So it knew where we were, it knew where the game world was, and it knew enough to render each one independently. It was really interesting.
That's very cool.
Like it's the kind of thing that even more so than the Oculus, it seems like they need to get dev kits out and get people building weird shit with it, and then go from there. There's some gotchas. The demo was in the dark room at Maker
Only
Faire.
works in the dark.
It's going to have to be a dark room just because the Pico projectors that are on the glasses are pretty. They don't generate a lot of light. In order for something else to track, so like they had this wand thing that you can put in the world. I assume you could also put like gloves with LEDs on the tips and use them in the future. But in order for that to work, there also have to be cameras on the surface so they can tell where your fingers or the wand or whatever are in relationship to the things that you're seeing. They're going to do a Kickstarter. So there'll be a Kickstarter to buy dev kits basically later this summer, it seems like. And I mean, it was really cool. It was one of the coolest tech demos I've seen in a long time.
Wow.
There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with it, but I'm interested to see what they do next.
Very cool.
Norm,
It's the kind of application that you can see go beyond games also.
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
$200 is what they're targeting, which is
For the glasses
Sounds
and the
reasonable.
mat.
Yeah.
seems all right.
Yeah, I mean cheaper than an Oculus. Anything else you want to talk about? Should we wrap it up, Norm?
Yeah, I think I may have to
Brad's got a blast.
sadly take my leave.
I think that'll do it for us this week. We'll be back next week with a normal show. This is the.
I won't be back.
Oh, you're not going to be
I'm
here.
not gonna be here.
Might be just a me cast next week.
Yeah. Talk
Talk to the camera.
Will Smith
get a
rants.
soapbox.
I don't think I have the teleprompter set up, so I don't know if I can do that. But we'll figure it out. Brad, anything to plug? You guys are going to be at E3 in a couple weeks.
Yeah, E3 coverage coming up. That's kind of the main thing, really.
You're in the dead period. People want to watch you play Dota.
Yeah, if they want to do that. Actually, I think today will be the first day that I won't be able to actually do that since I started it. Because
Maybe the spell's broken.
What is your streaming
Well,
setup?
I've got a review on my plate and a bunch of E3
boy.
meetings to book and stuff like that. I'm just using an Open Broadcaster if you're familiar with it. It's kind of you know what I'm talking about. No. It's essentially an open source sort of competitor to XSplit.
Okay.
I haven't spent enough time with XSplit to say for certain, but I think this is probably less kind of feature rich. But the biggest advantage it has, as far as I know, is that it hooks directly into the DirectX API hooks.
Okay.
So
Like Fraps.
sorta, yeah. So generally there's a lot less overhead for capturing just the game feed than there is because XSplit is just capturing kind of whatever's on the screen.
Well, you can also say
You can.
you can do more with XSplit, but
You can, but the way it hooks into it is kind of at a higher level. So the thing I've been told from people that do a lot of streaming is that OBS is better for if you just want to stream a game and not a bunch of other desktop stuff, and you want to get better performance out of it. That's the thing to use. Plus, it's free.
Yeah.
XSplit you
It's annual.
pay for a license.
Yeah.
It's been working really well. I mean, we built all those extra Ivy Bridge machines at the office and using them for different stuff. And
Oh, cool.
one of them is just in a back office, and I've been using it to do that stuff.
Oh, so you just go. So when you do those lunchtime streams, and that's
Yeah,
it.
like
Okay.
it's just me. It doesn't take any other production resources. Nobody having
That's
to
awesome.
man the stream. It's just I go in there and start up Broadcaster and
future games coverage. man.
hit a couple of buttons and go. It's like the quality of the file that comes out is not quite as good as our big crazy production setup. But for one person's time, I think it's working pretty well.
Good enough.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Norm, there's tons of stuff from NASA on the site right now. Maker Faire videos are rolling out all week. I'm trying to think what else we have cooking. I don't know. Just come to the site. This has been an awesome week for tested content, so you should come check it out. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the show, and maybe next Tuesday for Still Entitled. I don't know. We don't have one of those in the can yet, so we'll see. Bye. Today's outro is brought to you by Benathon 2. Benathon. Hi there. I didn't see you. That's this one. Should we talk about tech news a little bit? You know.